we filed this morning a motion for required finding of not guilty under Massachusetts Rule of Criminal Procedure 25A. I think that's before the court. My comments will be relatively brief, but it's important, and the points that I'm going to make in the next couple of seconds or next couple of minutes are equally important. It comes down to the following. The Commonwealth has simply not proven, even in a light most favorable to them, that there was a collision on January 29th, 2022 at 34 Fairview in Canton, Massachusetts. There was no collision proven to have occurred. There was no eyewitness presented. There was no video evidence, no audio evidence, no evidence in the form of physical evidence at the scene by searches that were done by officers on the morning of January 29th, 2022. The Commonwealth, through suspect experts based on circumstantial technical data, only sought to prove a backing event, and that's important. They sought to prove that at 34 Fairview, the SUV went backward. They did not prove, and every single one of their experts was asked this question, they did not prove that there was actually a collision associated with that backing event. The Commonwealth experts said at best that the car went in reverse, and it was suspect whether it went in reverse at 34 Fairview or some other place, time, or date. The Commonwealth also put on an expert who said that she found no injuries, none, mind you, indicative of a vehicle strike on John O'Keefe's body. And she, Dr. Irini Scortibello, was arguably their most important witness. The Commonwealth cannot and did not say or prove a collision at a particular time, a collision at a particular place, a collision with a particular person, or that a collision even occurred on January 29th, 2022 at or around or at or after 12:30 in the morning. Their own expert, I think it was yesterday, if not the day before yesterday, was asked on examination by Mr. Alessi, can you tell us the particulars of the collision, pardon me, as you suggested in your testimony? And his answer was, there's simply not enough evidence. He was asked specifically, why didn't you try to recreate the circumstances, the force impact? That's what you do, sir. You're a biomechanic expert. Recreate it for us. And he said, there's not enough evidence. There is evidence, however, that Brian Higgins and Brian Albert were sparring at 34 Fairview. There is evidence, however, that was just minutes, not hours, not days, minutes before John O'Keefe ultimately met his fate at 34 Fairview. There is evidence that Brian Higgins was love-struck, that he was jealous, that he was aggressively coaxing John O'Keefe out of the waterfall, that he was passively aggressively coaxing Miss Reed to engage with him rather than John O'Keefe. Again, there's not a single eyewitness to a collision. There was not even a single eyewitness to a backing event at 34 Fairview. The court will recall Jennifer McCabe testified that she basically watched the SUV the entirety of the time it was in front of the location at 34 Fairview with Miss Reed in the driver's seat. She saw it pull up once, she saw it pull up twice, she saw it pull up a third time, and then she saw it was gone. And at no time did she ever see the car go in reverse. She certainly didn't see the SUV go in reverse at a high speed, and she darn sure didn't see the car go in reverse at a high speed and strike a pedestrian. Her focus was defined enough to see thin tire tracks in a dusting of snow, thin enough, I think the phrase was, to track a cat. That's how detailed she was in her observations, yet she did not see John O'Keefe hit by an SUV. She did not see John O'Keefe's body in the snow, in the yard laying prostrate, a 216-pound, 6'1" man.
I'm about 2 minutes behind. When I saw that this might be a motion to dismiss, I jumped on here. So I don't know exactly what's happening, but something
In the snow, directly in front of the SUV she was tracking the entire time. There are two other witnesses, Ryan Nagel, Heather Maxson. They both noted that John O'Keefe, not that they didn't see him, Your Honor, that John O'Keefe was not in the vehicle when they were behind him. The dome light was on. They could see inside the interior of the vehicle. Miss Reed was sitting there with her hands at 10 and 2.
Jury's not there.
And the passenger seat, notably and markedly, was empty. He was not outside the vehicle. He wasn't standing. He wasn't sitting. He wasn't lying down. There's only one place he could be: inside the curtilage of the home, inside the house, or inside the garage. Not one witness that was inside the house, not one passerby, not one neighbor, not one plow driver ever saw John O'Keefe's body laying prostrate in the snow that morning. Not one. Not until Karen Reed found Mr. O'Keefe at about 6:03. And again, the Commonwealth's chief medical expert, Dr. Scortibello, their medical examiner, who's the only person that the court heard from or will ever hear from who actually investigated John O'Keefe's physical body, the only person to have physical access to John O'Keefe, testified he did not have any injuries consistent with being struck by a vehicle. But she did indicate that the injuries, as did the firefighters, the first responders, indicate that he had injuries consistent with a physical altercation. And certainly, as to counts 1 and 3, no evidence has been presented or proffered whatsoever by the Commonwealth that Karen Reed intended to run over and harm John O'Keefe in any way, shape, form, or fashion. Hearken to the video at C.F. McCarthy's. Hearken to the video at the waterfall. Every witness confirmed what our eyes could see. That night, John O'Keefe, Karen Reed were loving, caring, affectionate. There's absolutely no evidence that Karen Reed had an intent to harm John O'Keefe, or that she that after the fact, that she intended to leave him for dead, because there was no fact to be after. There was no collision in the first place. The Commonwealth's case, certainly on counts 1 and 3, taken separate from count 2, because of the mens rea associated with counts 1 and 3, fails miserably. The Commonwealth, at the end of the day, has presented their best case. They've done their best. Some would say they've done their worst. And their case has failed. No reasonable jury, hearkening back to the standard under Rule 25, no reasonable jury could find Karen Reed guilty of count 1, count 2, or count 3. But taking count 1 and 3 aside, those are separate counts because of the mens rea required and the high burden that's required, even taken in the light most favorable to the Commonwealth. What evidence have they proven that Karen Reed intended to kill or harm John O'Keefe, or that she intended to leave him for dead in the snow? The answer is none, 0. No reasonable jury could find Karen Reed guilty. This case never should have been brought in the first place. There are reasons that I won't go into here. The court knows those reasons, or knows our position on those reasons. This was a vindictive prosecution, and I believe that the court is duty-bound pursuant to the precepts of Rule 25A, as well as the principles of justice, to dismiss all 3 counts, and certainly taking count 1 and count 3 aside, the court is duty-bound to dismiss those 2 counts. Thank you.
In a light most favorable to the Commonwealth, the first issue the court should look to is intoxication.
Everybody in
The
the
fact finder
town.
would find that the defendant was in fact intoxicated.
So is everybody else in Canton.
Based on the serum conversion, and based on Karen Reed's statements herself, you've heard many, many admissions by the defendant about her level of intoxication, which far surpassed the statutory mandate that she consumed alcohol in a way that would affect her ability to operate safely.
I'm testing
Those are
that.
just two of the cornerstone pieces of intoxication, which are clear, light most favorable to the Commonwealth, a reasonable fact finder could find beyond a reasonable
I
doubt.
may be 2 minutes behind.
The evidence of collision is abundant. I do not want to go through an entire closing argument or rhetoric, but suffice to say there are taillight fragments from the defendant's own Lexus from her shattered right taillight
That don't
that are found in
match.
Mr. O'Keefe's clothes. Mr. O'Keefe is left at the very spot where she expects to find him, according to her statements, where her car does a backing maneuver at least 24 miles per hour.
Into another vehicle?
He is left with injuries on his arm consistent with the damage to her Lexus right rear taillight. The scientific data is substantial.
Guys, this is not closing arguments. The jury's not there. I believe we have a motion to dismiss. About 2
Telescreen
minutes
data, Apple
behind.
Healthcare data, battery temperature data. And again, Ms. Reed's statements herself about clipping, hitting. The evidence of a collision in this case is overwhelming. It is a public way. Lieutenant Gallagher told us about Fairview as being a public way. And so as to the operating under the influence of alcohol manslaughter, the conduct of driving in that forward and backing maneuver after being intoxicated meets clearly the standard
Bullshit.
for OUI manslaughter. Regarding second-degree murder, as highlighted in my opening statement,
Doesn't even believe what he said.
Don't
the
talk over it.
defendant engaged in intentional conduct that was her maneuver of driving forward, stopping, and then driving back to Mr. O'Keefe on January 29, 2022. Under the conditions that night, after being intoxicated, that conduct was intentional, and any reasonable person could find that her conduct that night created a plain and strong likelihood of death. There is no predicate of intending to kill or even intending to hit. There is clearly a plain and strong likelihood of death driving a 6,000-pound SUV forward and then back. In addition to state of mind, again,
You know who else was intoxicated and drove forward and backward that night? Brian Higgins.
the defendant tells us herself. Through firefighter Becker, they're arguing, they're upset. We see the text messages, evidence of attempted breakup, and we hear the words of Karen Reed when she leaves numerous voicemails that night, and you can hear her voice. There are statements, I do not want to go through a summary of all of them, but statements from the defendant herself where she acknowledges an injury to Mr. O'Keefe. She's the last one with him, where to find him, and her hypothesis about hitting and clipping him. As to leaving the scene, again, the defendant tells us that when she leaves, he doesn't look mortally wounded. She leaves him, makes dozens and dozens of calls, but never goes back to help him and leaves him to die. And we heard from Dr. Wolf about the life-saving procedures that could have been initiated. The chance of survival was never given to John O'Keefe. All of those facts suffice under Lattimore, a light most favorable to the government, that a reasonable fact finder would find beyond a reasonable doubt, or could find beyond a reasonable doubt, each and every element of each and every one of these charges.
All right, thank you. So the motion is denied as to all three. On the other topic that we were discussing at sidebar, I don't need to hear argument on that right now, Ms. Giannetti. I'd prefer to get started. I would like you and Mr. Brennan to talk, to see about proposal. So are we ready to bring the jury in? I did not ask you at sidebar. Are you ready for this witness, Mr. Brennan?
I'm ready.
Okay, so,
Thank you.
all right, so we'll bring the jury in. That will take 5 minutes, Paul. All right, so we'll take the lease.
All right, please.
Yeah, we have our flash goal started, so if you guys could send your heart me's, it'd be greatly appreciated. How in the hell is she gonna deny that? Everything that AJ brought up was factual to dismiss. She said no. She straight up just said no. Motion to dismiss, you guys. Motion to dismiss. She just straight up denied it.
It's probably gonna cost her.
It didn't, okay, what was set to happen today was they had things that they had to work out in the courtroom before the jury came in. That was this. Catnip sent me a message saying something about what was going on, and then I turned it on, and then I saw that they were putting in a motion to dismiss, and I came right here. I just got out of bed. Karma, I know, karma is a bitch. Really is. How, with all the points that he just made, how can they not dismiss? No, she sure wasn't listening. I bet you she even had earphones in or something. I'm getting palpitations. Damn. I agree. So corrupt. If you guys haven't sent your heart me's, I need 26 more and I would really appreciate it. This is not a good start to our day. No, she didn't even consider it. She sure as hell did not consider it. No. She could have at least pretended to consider it, but no. She didn't even pretend to consider it. She just said, okay, your motion to dismiss is denied. They gave a long-ass list of reasons. A long-ass list of reasons. And she's like, no. Yeah. No, not if it, she doesn't want the jury to decide if it's something that goes against what she thinks and believes and wants. Because if they find her not guilty, they'll have some other reason. Okay, we need to make a serious decision right now. I still need a whole bunch of heart me's. We need 36 total. If you haven't sent your heart me's, it's 1 coin. If you could send it, I would greatly appreciate it. I got up super early, came in here before my shower to let you guys know what was going on. So your heart me's would be really appreciated. Now we have to make a decision. Do we want to stay watching this, or do we want to come back later so we could have our patients with parameters? Thank you. I haven't even done my eyebrows yet. I hope they sue, the county, the police department, McCabe, Alberts, all of them. I thought you said the Pope ruined the investigation. I was about to say, how the hell does the Pope have anything to do with this? I wonder how long it's going to take to get the jury in after that. Because you know that AJ's not just going to be like, okay, as we were. I cannot believe that they just denied this. Guys, I have 156 of you in here, and I need a total of 36 heart me's. So if just 36 of you could send your heart me's, it would really be appreciated. Really, really, really. The motion to dismiss was denied. Thank you. Here, hold on. It's that down there. I mean, technically, we shouldn't have been surprised because this is Bev, the person of the year. Joke. But maybe, I thought maybe, you know what, they're laying out some actual real points and they haven't done anything to prove this. I thought maybe, just maybe, she'd at least want to save her own skin at the end of all this. But no. No. We need to change Bev's sticker to something else. We need to make it, thank you for subscribing, Brandy, welcome to the family. We need to make a sticker of Bev that depicts how she is. I'm thinking a pitchfork. Any ideas? I cannot believe, he came up there with facts from beginning to end. Yeah, I'm going to add horns to her. Because this woman did not do this. They laid out the fact that not a damn thing was done to prove she did it, and the state has rested. But she still says that's not good enough. Well, she didn't even say that. She just said denied. She didn't give no explanation or nothing. I mean, we all know why. Oh my God. So I came across some documents yesterday. You know how we're all trying to make the connection between Bev and the Alberts? I know what it is. I know what it is. If I'm remembering this correctly, I have the documents, but I didn't size them right yet. Not Colin, the other Albert that starts with a C. I think it's Chris Albert. In 94, I think it was, he was driving a vehicle while intoxicated, and he struck somebody, ending their life. Who did he hire as his lawyer? Somebody that only represents the rich and prominent families. A very expensive lawyer. So if her husband defended Chris Albert, how are you going to sit there and tell us that there's no tie?
You are unmuted.
Yeah, he sent them on a police chase. A manhunt was put out. And he only served 6 months in prison. Chris. Let me see if we could read any of the documents. Hold on. Hi, KJ. How are you?
Yay. No persons have any business before the Honorable Beverly Kenobi.
Yeah, you really can't make them out.
For the country of Norfolk. Join in, give your attendance, and you shall be heard. Let's say the Commonwealth of Massachusetts.
Bev's brother? I thought it was husband for some reason. Yeah, he unalived a pedestrian while intoxicated. While intoxicated. Thank you, guys. Thank you. I appreciate it. I'm still waking up. Yeah, while intoxicated. He served 6 months in prison. That is a connection. That is a connection. Guys, we still need 5 more heart me's in under 5 minutes. So if 5 of you that haven't sent your heart me's could send them, I would really, really, really appreciate it. I really want to get this flash goal knocked out. Yeah, he passed away and he only got 6 months in prison. And her brother was Chris Albert's lawyer. And you're telling us there's no connection? There's no tie between her and the McAlberts? I call bullshit.
In this case, does not have to put on a case, but I hear that you are. So your first witness, please, Mr. Jackson.
Thank you, Your Honor.
They do not have to put on a case, but I hear that you are.
With the court's permission, we would ask that Matthew DeSoto join us.
Okay.
Well, I have all of the documents. I just haven't sized them out to where I could show on the screen yet. 2 more heart me's, 2 more. Thank you, Sam. 2 more heart me's from anyone that hasn't said a heart me. We only need 2 more. There's 125 of you in here. I had a whole bunch of police just walk in like they needed to show some kind of force. I will do that.
You solemnly swear the evidence you give the court and jury in the case down here is the truth, the whole truth, and nothing but the truth, so help you God.
Yes, I do.
Thank you.
Okay, so what do we want to do? We still don't have 2 heart me's, so we might not make this flash go, guys. We might not get it. There's one. We need 1 more. Thank you. Thank you, T-Dragon. 1 more. Just 1. Thank you. Thank you so much. Thank you, guys. Thank you. We just got our 22 flash goal knocked out. That means a lot. Thank you. Okay, so I see half of you want us to continue and half of us want to come back later. I'm going to do a poll because that is the only way for me to get a 100% reading. If you want us to continue, tap the smile face. If you want us to come back, tap the cry face. I don't pick the emotes, TikTok does. Back, now. Now, and back. Keep in mind, we won't be able to fast forward. There will be no patience with parameters if we keep going. Are you, Victoria? Thank you. I appreciate it, guys. Yeah. Well, I can rewind. I just can't. No, I was about to get in the shower when I saw this. Okay. Wow, over a punch. Hi, Patricia. Yes, there was a motion to dismiss. They made a very good argument, one without any holes whatsoever, and Bev just said denied. Thank you, Sam. Oh my gosh. No, I don't eat early in the mornings. So the only thing I would need to take a shower, you know, my hair. Other than that, if you guys want to sit here and look at my hair not being washed, then it's up to you guys. I paused it because I don't like talking over it. Well, you know what? I could at least do a face mask. I could start a face mask. We could continue. I could put on a face mask. That way, later, after the live, I could hop in the shower then, and I don't have to worry about, you know, anything stuck in my hair from my face mask. All right, we will continue. We had a motion to dismiss, and Bev denied it. I sure am, Kat. Hold on, guys. Hold on. I gotta put the right thing up here. I was right in the middle of making a different rat sticker for Hank because I found a way to put the ears specifically on his head, but I could do it later. I cannot believe how much they laid it out, and she just literally said, no, denied. Like, what? Did you not hear the argument we heard? The hell? All right, here's our first witness for the defense. This is now the defense's case, guys. I at least pull my
Mr.
eyebrows
Jackson,
out.
whenever you're ready.
Thank you. Mr. DeSogra, could you please state your full name and spell your last name for the jurors, please?
Sure. Matthew DeSogra, last name Disogra.
What do you do for a living, sir?
I am a licensed professional engineer. I practice in the field of accident reconstruction. And within that field, I specialize in analysis, interpretation, and accessing all types of vehicle data.
How are you currently employed?
I'm employed by Delta V Forensic Engineering, which is an engineering firm that specializes in accident reconstruction, all parts of accident reconstruction.
Tell us a little bit more about Delta V. What is it? What kind of company is it? But other than that specialty, what else does it do?
So accident reconstruction is a broad field. There are a lot of subspecialties within that. So accident reconstruction is everything from the initial investigation phases of a crash all the way through testimony, like here today. Some of the specialties within that could be things like biomechanics,
Those 3 are the new 3 stickers.
could be human factors.
All the ones you
and
guys
my specialty
requested.
is data, vehicle data, and event data recorders.
Staying on that topic, what is your current title or position with Delta V?
I am the director of engineering for our EDR services line.
What does EDR services mean?
So event data recorders. So EDR is a general term we can use to talk about all types of data from all types of vehicles.
And how would you describe your role as the director of engineering for EDR services for Delta V?
I wear a couple of different hats. First and foremost, I'm still a practicing engineer. I still conduct investigations. I still perform analyses, and I testify. On top of that, in the director role, I oversee a group. It's not just me doing this kind of work. I have 3 other engineers that work with me, all specializing in EDRs. So I oversee that group and focus on kind of the day-to-day operations as well as the direction we're going. You know, with things like autonomous vehicles coming, the role of data is growing. So we're kind of looking to the future in a lot of those ways.
As a consulting engineer, you've indicated what your specialization is. Do you specialize in motor vehicle accident reconstruction as well as vehicle system analyses?
I began my career at Delta V doing traditional accident reconstruction in the broadest sense. And as I have progressed, I have sort of narrowed myself down and now specialize in that. But I still consider myself an expert in accident reconstruction because ultimately,
No, please finish.
ultimately, anytime we're doing EDR or data analysis, it is in support of an accident reconstruction.
You talked about event data recorders. Do you also engage in the specialty of advanced data recovery methods? In other words, methods of pulling the data. It's one thing to have it sitting in a car. It's another thing to pull it out and make it useful, correct?
That's right. There are a lot of different ways data can be accessed, all the way from just plugging into a port on a working vehicle, all the way through when a vehicle is catastrophically damaged and even the modules themselves are damaged, accessing the data at the chip level. So no matter what condition a vehicle or the remnants of a vehicle are in, generally we can still get the data from that.
Do you have any specific knowledge about Toyota data?
I do.
Describe that for us.
Beyond Toyota being a common vehicle in general, so we run into that data quite frequently. Just this year, we published a paper specifically studying some of the behaviors of the additional data recorder that's in Toyota vehicles.
Does Toyota make another
Who's engaged? Somebody got engaged?
sub-brand, for lack of a better phrase?
Lexus, I believe you're.
So Lexus is a Toyota brand. Broadly.
Correct.
Okay. What is infotainment? It's kind of a combination of a couple of words, information and entertainment. What is infotainment data as it relates to vehicles, modern vehicles?
So it's a generic term, which more or less means the thing that's in the middle of the dashboard with the screen on it. A lot of manufacturers implement that a little bit differently, so they all look different, but it's a general term we use in the industry to describe
for the
that
Heartmeats, guys.
system.
And what about, I'm going to change gears a little bit, what about your experience with regard to GPS as it relates to vehicles on the road, on the common roadways of the country?
GPS is a pretty fundamental part of vehicle data as a whole at this point, and we run into it in a lot of different places. We see GPS data from
I engage with my audience a lot. Trust me, a lot.
Infotainment systems, so we're analyzing that data. Most of that's GPS based. I do a lot of heavy truck work, and almost every heavy truck has some kind of GPS system in it for the fleets to track them. So we're analyzing that as part of data. And then the last area would be when we conduct testing, any kind of research, we're generally going to put our own GPS systems on vehicles so we can study that data. So analyzing GPS is a regular part of my job.
GPS, global, I'm going by memory, global positioning satellites?
Global positioning system.
System, got it. GPS is a mechanism to figure out where on Earth a certain item might be,
You.
whether it's this pin or an 18-wheel tractor trailer, correct?
That's correct.
Is there any difference inherently in the GPS mechanism that's installed in an infotainment center in a Toyota/Lexus, versus a heavy truck or a heavy vehicle that's on the road?
The core technology behind how it works is fundamentally the same.
What is instrumented testing as it relates to Toyotas and VCH testing and things of that nature? Can you explain that for the jurors?
Sure. What instrumented testing means is, let's say we want to study, let's say, how accurate some data is that comes out of one of these vehicles. So we need an independent source of that information. So what we'll do is we'll equip a vehicle with one of these GPS data acquisition systems. Basically, we can drive the vehicle around and we know exactly where it is, how fast it's going, all these parameters. We can
That sounds very promising for us, sir. This is the Peter Thomas Ross Instant Reveal Facial Peel. Don't leave it on for more than 10 minutes, guys.
do some maneuvers with the vehicle. Then we can download the data that the vehicle stored, and now we can compare the two and say, okay, well, if we have really high confidence in our system, how accurate is the vehicle system? Because the reality is there's always some small errors in these vehicle systems. And in a lot of cases, what's important is quantifying that error.
So you're obviously familiar with GPS systems in many different platforms.
That's correct.
Okay. How many cases have you been a part of in terms of investigating and or analyzing
Me too, Jamie.
infotainment center or infotainment system data?
Infotainment specifically, probably around 30.
And are you also familiar with engaging in some sort of analysis that's referred to as clock alignment?
Yes.
What is clock alignment?
Clock alignment would mean that anytime we have a timestamp in any set of data, a singular clock value, there's a good likelihood that that's not 100% accurate. So clock alignment would mean finding an independent source of time to compare that to, preferably one that's more reliable, and then making the necessary adjustments so that time can be considered real time.
How many cases have you been involved in that deal with clock alignment specifically?
Thousands, over 1,000. That's a regular part of data analysis. Any data set that has a timestamp, it's normal. It's part of the analysis. It's really the first step is let's get that clock aligned. So it's something I'm doing regularly.
Hold on, I just realized that we're only 11 subscriptions away from 100. I've never gotten into 100 subscribers before. So thank you for help getting me close, guys. I appreciate it.
And how long have you worked for Delta V?
It'll be my 13-year anniversary next month,
Right,
actually.
Courtney?
Okay. These things that you've just described that we've talked about for the last few minutes, these are all duties that you perform within the rubric of your employment as the director of engineering at Delta V, correct?
Correct.
Now let's shift gears real quick and talk about your education, training, and background that qualifies you to perform these duties that you just talked about. Go ahead. The road is open and it's yours.
Certainly. So I began my academic career. I got an undergraduate degree in mechanical engineering from the University of North Carolina at Charlotte.
Thank you for subscribing, user. Welcome to the subscription family. You can now use the stickers. So when you have the comment box, there's going to be the little emoji sign, the smiley face. Next to that is a star. That's where all those stickers are.
I then went on and got a master's degree, also in mechanical engineering from the same
Nice
school.
to meet you, Kim.
And then when I
Thank
came out of
you.
school, I immediately started working for Delta V Forensic Engineering. In order to get a professional engineer license, I then needed to acquire 4 additional years of work directly under the supervision of another licensed engineer. So then I completed that phase of work. And then in order to maintain my license, I have to complete continuing education every year in the field that I practice.
So you got both a Bachelor of
Good
Science,
morning.
correct?
Correct, Bachelor of
Did
Science.
you mention the year that you got your Bachelor of Science?
2011,
And you have a Master's
correct.
in engineering.
That is correct.
And when did you secure that degree?
2013.
You just mentioned engaging in continuing education. What is continuing education in terms of the engineering field or the reconstruction
Yeah,
field
is he?
in your world?
So in the state that I'm licensed, in North Carolina, they define that really as any activity you're participating
Are you all right in there?
in that's keeping you abreast with the field, keeping you up to date with what's going on. So taking formal classes counts for continuing education, but also some of the other work that I do, like publishing research in peer-reviewed journals, also counts as continuing education.
Do you regularly attend symposiums or symposia, I guess is the right
Yes.
word? Have you attended symposia related to EDR research and training?
Yes.
Right.
How about advanced applications of heavy vehicle EDR data?
Correct. Yeah, I attend. There's a couple of regular conferences in our industry specifically tailored to EDRs as a whole for passenger vehicles and heavy trucks. I'm a regular attendee of those. I'm also a regular speaker at most of those. And I'm usually presenting some of the new research that we have for that year.
So not only
I think I need to make a bits versus bytes sticker too. Let me know if you guys agree.
do you attend, you actually teach.
Correct.
Have you attended data, I'm sorry, have you attended data? Have you attended events that deal with data, event data recording systems and event data recording system extraction?
Yes.
What about vehicle crash reconstruction?
Yes.
What about electronic control module imaging?
Yes.
What about electronic control model analysis?
Yes.
Applying automotive EDR data to traffic reconstruction?
Yes.
These are samples of the type of continuing education that you routinely engage in, correct?
All that's accurate.
You talked about additional licenses and professional registrations.
That would be a nice thing to add to our collection, wouldn't it?
You're a licensed professional engineer, correct?
That's correct.
In North Carolina?
Correct.
You're also a certified IPC specialist?
Yes.
What is an IPC specialist?
IPC is an organization that offers certifications in basically soldering. I could say it in more technical ways, but it boils down to soldering. So as it relates to what I do, when we are recovering data from damaged EDRs at the chip level, that involves some really precise soldering work. And so IPC offers courses in how to do that at basically the highest level, and then they offer certifications for that.
Are you a member of the Society of
It's
Automotive
been 10
Engineers?
minutes, right?
I am active member.
When you say an active member, is that a nationally recognized society for academic engineers?
Yes.
The teaching roles that you've held within organizations, have you been an instructor concerning accessing and interpreting heavy vehicle data event recorders?
I am currently an instructor of that course, which is offered through the Society of Automotive Engineers.
As a matter of fact, next week, are you going someplace to teach?
I will be in Wisconsin next week teaching that very course.
Are you a member of any subcommittees within that organization, within the organization of the Society for Automotive Engineers?
I am a voting member in the J2728 subcommittee, which is a subcommittee for event data recorders on trucks and buses.
Are you also a member of the National Association of Professional Reconstruction Specialists?
I am.
Does that require a certain level of education?
Hey, Wisconsin, your neighbor Illinois here.
It does, and it requires, as far as I know, when I joined, sort of proof that you are active within the field of accident reconstruction.
That was my next question. It requires you to stay current on accident reconstruction issues, correct?
Correct.
Have you also authored peer-reviewed articles on within your field and
Yes.
subfield? Is it fair to say that you've authored or co-authored a number of peer-reviewed papers in the field of accident reconstruction specifically, as well as EDR data retrieval?
That's correct.
Neighbors.
Have any of your peer-reviewed
Oh.
articles that you've either authored or co-authored specifically focused on Toyota vehicles?
You can
Yes.
Can you name one, please?
Specifically, this year published a paper where we studied the effects of collision-induced power loss on the way data is recorded in.
Sorry for the F-bomb, but my powder just fell into my drink.
The power's closed, right?
Yes.
I don't like the questioning tone.
Toyota systems, and that would include Lexus systems. Fundamentally, they're the same components, it's just a different brand on top.
In January 2025, did you
Yes,
co-author a
100%.
publication
I will.
entitled Simulation of Vehicle Speed Sensor Data for Use in Heavy Vehicle Event Data Recording Testing?
Jackson, you're gonna have to repeat that.
Of course, sorry. In January 2025, did you co-author a publication entitled Simulation of Vehicle Speed Sensor Data for Use in Heavy Vehicle
Sure is,
Event
Jenny.
Data Recorder Testing?
Yes, I was the lead author on that paper.
When you're dealing with retrieving data from a vehicle, an EDR, an event data recorder, Toyota paper, whatever it might be, and that's a term of art, Toyota paper, correct?
Sure.
Does it matter if the vehicle is a heavy vehicle, a
Mayleys.
small vehicle, a passenger vehicle, a moped, or a skateboard if they happen to have a infotainment center on it?
There are differences, of course, between the data that comes out of passenger vehicles and the data that comes out of heavy trucks, but there are also a lot of fundamental similarities to those. Like, for example, they all record vehicle speed. They all have accelerator pedals. They all have brake pedals. So a lot of the core data we're
Thank you
analyzing
for subscribing.
is very similar.
Welcome to the
In
family.
January 2020, did you co-author a publication entitled Chip and Board Level Digital Forensics of Cummins Heavy Vehicle Data Event Recorders?
Yes, I did.
Okay. And what was the fundamental, without getting into the granular details, the fundamental aspect of that paper?
In that research, we introduced a new technique for getting data out of damaged modules. So, you know, they're either burned, they've been submerged in the water, they're crushed physically from impact. We demonstrated a new method to be able to get
He said sorry.
data
Let me go back.
less.
And that's a term of art, Toyota paper, correct?
Sure.
I rewound it for you.
Does it matter if the vehicle is a heavy vehicle, a small vehicle, a passenger vehicle, a moped, or a skateboard if they happen to have a infotainment center on it?
There are differences, of course, between the data that comes out of passenger vehicles and the data that comes out of heavy trucks, but there are also a lot of fundamental similarities to those. Like, for example, they all record vehicle speed. They all have accelerator pedals. They all have brake pedals. So a lot of the core data we're analyzing is very similar.
In January 2020, did you co-author a publication entitled Chip and Board Level Digital Forensics of Cummins Heavy Vehicle Data Event Recorders?
Yes, I did.
Okay. And what was the fundamental, without getting into the granular details, the fundamental aspect of that paper?
So, in that research, we introduced a new technique for getting data out of damaged modules.
Good
So,
morning, Peggy.
you know, they're either burned, they've been submerged in the water, they're crushed physically from impact. We demonstrated a new method to be able to get data less invasively, but still at the chip level. And we also demonstrated that we could translate that data from the chips outside of the software that was provided. So you could use the software and get the data that way.
Thank you.
We demonstrated we could basically do it ourselves if we wanted
Well, I
to.
didn't intend to do it that time either.
Mr. Sogra, have you been qualified in other courts to testify as an expert in the area of accident reconstruction, EDR data retrieval? and recovery?
Yes,
How many times?
once
When was that?
in New York.
I'm hoping it's okay. I'm
You were
hoping
deemed
it's what it's gonna
qualified
say.
as an expert in that court in this field that you're talking about today.
Specifically with as it relates to data,
Right,
yes.
Brandy?
I want to talk a little bit about what you were asked to do in this case. We asked to undertake a review of certain work performed by a person by the name of Shannon Burgess with Aperture LLC.
Yes,
Are you familiar with Aperture?
yes,
Before you were asked to undertake that review, were you familiar with Aperture?
yes,
Were you familiar specifically with Shannon Burgess?
yes.
Were you asked to engage in any original analysis in this case?
He is?
All of my analysis is fundamentally based on all of the data and the numbers provided in the Aperture reports. So more or less the answer to your question is no.
So you were asked specifically to give the court and the jurors clarity on data that Shannon Burgess had analyzed and provided a report about, correct?
Correct.
And that dealt with data obtained from Ms. Reed's SUV, Karen Reed's SUV, correct?
Correct.
Did you in fact review Shannon Burgess's report summarizing his findings and conclusions regarding clock drift? That report was dated in January of 2025.
Yes.
And what did you do in that regard?
I analyzed the methods that Mr. Burgess proposed for aligning the clocks in that report.
Were you also asked at some point to review Judson Welcher's report and PowerPoint presentation regarding the timing of the text stream event known as 1162-2, 1162-2?
Yes.
At some point to review.
Yesterday, Karen Reed said she expected the trial to be a week and a half to 2 weeks. Hi, and Callie. I used to live there too for a little bit.
Judson Welcher's report and PowerPoint
How you been,
presentation
Barbie?
regarding the timing of the text stream event known as 1162-2, 1162-2.
Yes.
Did you determine whether Dr. Welcher had based his report on Shannon Burgess's analysis?
Sure do.
Yes.
Before we get into that, I want to ask you a couple of questions about text stream events, so we're all talking sort of with the same vocabulary, if we could. When I say text stream event, have you ever heard that called a trigger event?
I'm doing
Yes.
okay.
Are
Thank
those
you.
sort of synonymous?
The event, in order to be generated, has to be triggered by something. So,
Brandy, that's the way that they roll. I think they will.
yes.
You became aware in your analysis, I'm assuming that Dr. Welcher reported a trigger event.
Oh, you guys activated a subwave. I didn't even see that. Thank you. Let's see if we can get total. It's asking for 8. So if we can get 5 more, that'd be awesome. That'd get us closer to 100. I've never been there.
At a particular time or span of time, correct?
Correct.
What span of time was that?
would-
I should say, what time was that?
For which event? Just so
For
I'm
the
clear.
1162-2 event, sorry.
Do you mind if I reference the slide? Because I don't have the number
With
committed.
the court's
to-
permission.
Go ahead.
Do you have a copy of it in front of you?
I do, Your Honor.
My notes, I'm literally writing down. He's like Shannon Burgess.
So the original analysis places event 1162-2 ending at 12:31:43 a.m.
Now, Dr. Welcher, this is what I want to talk about for just a quick second. Dr. Welcher indicated that the trigger event began at 12:31:38, correct?
Thank you for subscribing. Welcome to the family. You now get to use all those stickers. So when you go to type in the comment box, there'll be the smiley face emoji. Then next to that is the star. That's where all those stickers are.
I believe so.
That would suggest that a trigger event lasts 5 seconds, 12:31:38 to 12:31:43, correct?
Objection.
Sustained is to full.
Hi, Mel.
Let me ask you this.
Mel, you missed it. The defense brought a very sound, scientifically proven, and just obvious reason for a motion to dismiss, and she denied it. That's why we're here early. Hold on, I'll go back. We need to get our Discord up started. I have it, but we need to figure out how to use it so you guys have it as the subscribers. I know. I can't believe it either.
So the the original analysis places event 1162-2 ending at 12:31:43 a.m.
Now, Dr. Welcher, this is what I want to talk about for just a quick second. Dr. Welcher indicated that the trigger event began at 12:31:38, correct?
I believe so.
That would suggest that a trigger event lasts 5 seconds, 12:31:38 to 12:31:43, correct?
Objection.
Sustained is deferred.
Thank you.
Let me ask you this. Does a trigger event or does a text stream event last 5 seconds or 10 seconds?
The trigger is a singular point in time.
That's my question.
You mean
All
it's
right,
not
so
twice?
If we're thinking about a trigger event, it's like that clap, snap.
Other than Bev denying it without a second glance, it's been good other than that. Thank you.
Right? It's a point in time, not a series of, not a time
Pretty
span,
much.
correct?
It's a singular point, correct?
Okay. Does a trigger event or a text stream event cause a recording to bookend the trigger event itself?
Yes.
Explain that for the jurors so that we're
Good
very
morning,
clear about
Susan.
that.
Sure. So when an event is triggered, what we end up with is some data from before the event was triggered and some data from after the event was triggered. The way it does that is it's kind of always recording. And as soon as it sees a trigger, it says, aha, and it goes and it grabs the previous 5 seconds. That number can vary. It can be more or less than 5, but for the specific trigger we're talking about, it grabs the previous 5 seconds of data, and then it keeps recording for an additional 5 seconds, and that completes its recording phase.
Right. So if Dr. Welcher indicated that the text stream event, the trigger, was at 12:31:38, would it be accurate if he said that trigger ended at 12:31:43?
Objection.
Sustained is deferred.
Okay, we clearly need to start a counter for how many times she's going to sustain it. Has anyone counted so far so we know where to start? If not, we'll just start now. As to form, she
Is
said.
there any, if a trigger
So
event
this
is
is
one
3.
point in time,
Okay.
one snap in time, would it be accurate to say that the trigger event itself lasted 5 seconds and ended 5 seconds later?
It wouldn't be accurate to say the trigger lasted that
That's
long.
my question.
The event lasts that long, but the trigger is only one point within the event.
The recording lasts that long,
Right.
correct?
Correct.
So in other words, it captures, or does it, let me ask you this, does it capture 5 seconds before and 5 seconds after? But the trigger event is the singular point right in the middle.
That's correct.
Okay. If we were to calculate the window between the trigger event or the text stream event and a lock
Hopefully,
event
Aileen.
on John O'Keefe's phone, you analyzed both, correct? Or you reviewed both, correct?
Correct.
Would you calculate from the point of the trigger, would you calculate from 12:31:38, that point in time, and I'm using the tip of my pen to represent the point, at 12:31:38, or would you calculate it from 12:31:43?
Customarily, when we're doing any analysis, we're referencing everything off of the trigger. That's the normal way. Everything in the Aperture reports was referenced off of the end of the event. So
Of the recording event,
of the recording event.
not
So,
the trigger.
Correct. And I didn't correct that. I just went with that.
Jason, I 100% hear you. We've been talking about that for the past 3 weeks. That's something we're worried about too.
Convention for all of the analysis I did.
But you noted it,
Morning,
correct?
JK.
Correct.
And you noted that that would be 5 seconds inaccurate? I'll withdraw it. I'll ask it a different way. What would be the effect of timing
Okay, it's clearly not ready. Hold on.
If you were to start at the trigger event, 12:31:38,
How are you?
versus timing the event if you were to start at 12:31:43.
There'd be approximately 5-second difference in every subsequent calculation.
Yes, the Commonwealth rested yesterday. The reason we're here early today was because the defense made a motion to dismiss. And they laid it out pristinely. And Bev just said, denied. So we just decided to keep going. I can't believe it either. Thank you. It is
And
Cat,
if, in
100%.
There was a lock event, which you reviewed, at 12:32:09. How long would the actual window be from the trigger event to 12:32:09?
It would be larger by 5 seconds, approximately.
So it would actually be 31 seconds, correct? Did I do my math right?
You did.
Let's get back, if we can, to the offsets that you identified in Shannon Burgess's, the time offsets that you identified in Shannon Burgess's report. When you applied the potential offsets identified by Mr. Burgess
She did.
to the text stream event at 1162-2, what opinions or conclusions did you come to with regard to that analysis or that question?
Sustained, ask it to.
Did you apply the potential offsets identified by Mr. Burgess in his January 2025 report to the text stream event 1162-2?
Yes.
Did you also apply Dr. Welcher's analysis based on that same Shannon Burgess analysis to reach an opinion or a conclusion?
Yes.
And what was your opinion or conclusion with regard to that event and the timing following that event?
Based on all of the data in those two original reports, regardless of what adjustment is made or which 2 points are used to try to correct the clock, the phone lock event always occurs after the end of the event, using their convention of referencing off the end of the event, not the trigger, that it always occurs after.
And that was based on Shannon Burgess's January 2025 report, correct?
I know, because they had so many arguments when they had to, when Hank had to stand up there and say the reasons why you shouldn't dismiss. He had so many arguments. Not
Correct.
Sustained.
What was that based on? Which report?
5.
We're dealing with two different reports, May and January. I want to make sure we differentiate. Which report are you just now talking about?
I'm talking about the January report.
Now, did Mr. Burgess, were you supplied with a supplemental report by Mr. Burgess?
Yes, I was.
When was that?
Slightly after he issued it, but I don't know the exact date.
Say that again?
It was issued on, his report was dated May 8th, and I think I was provided it a couple days after that. I don't
Okay.
remember the exact date.
So after, well, do you know when this trial started?
No, I don't know the exact date.
I know you're not watching the trial, but it was in the middle of this trial, correct?
Sustained.
I'll ask a different question.
6.
With regard to the original report, the January 2025 report, was there any circumstance in which Mr. Burgess and Mr. Welcher could conclude that the lock event on John O'Keefe's phone, that lock event, occurred before the trigger event?
Objection.
Sustained. Ask it differently, Mr. Johnson.
You mean for the McAlberts and the McCabe's? Yeah, definitely. 100%.
What is your opinion about whether or not there was any analysis done by Mr. Burgess or Mr. Welcher that put the lock event occurring before the trigger?
Yeah, 6.
Objection.
Sustained.
7.
May we approach, Your Honor?
Yes.
Took you long enough to ask for that sidebar, AJ. I thought you would have done it sooner. Seven sustained objections. 7. And we're just getting started. What the hell is going on there? Since this is a gold mask, I wonder if this is worth anything. You know, the gold that I just peeled off my face. Oh gosh. Within a 5 or 6 minute period, yes. We are at 7. And if you guys are dying to use that sidebar sticker too, you can when you subscribe. There's subscriber stickers. We make new ones almost every day. If you need help figuring out how to do that, let us know. No, this is Matthew DeSogra. I didn't see the specification on the company. Kat, did you? Yeah, this is for the defense. Did you see what company he's from? He is pure professional, 100%. Yeah, but the jury's going to see it all. We just have to hope that the jury's not tainted.
Mayor, Your Honor.
I don't know who
Thank you.
EDB is.
Back to my question.
Not only do I not know who EDB is, but it's really rude to come into someone's live and tell people to go watch somebody else.
Was there any circumstance, based on your review, that if the tech stream event occurred at 12/31/38, that there was any circumstance that the lock event occurred before that trigger event?
There was not.
Delta V, thank you.
Did you create a PowerPoint for clarity's sake in March of 2025?
Yes,
Are you
Did you
obsessed
provide
with
that
slides?
to us?
I did.
What was the purpose of creating the PowerPoint?
The purpose of the PowerPoint was really to take a bunch of different data elements that were kind of placed throughout Mr. Burgess's report and Dr. Welcher's report in PowerPoint and compile them into a single source, a single table, essentially, to show as clearly as possible what the conclusions would be if we look at the data as a whole.
When you created that PowerPoint presentation, did you create it with the intention of providing it to the defense, which would then be provided to the Commonwealth?
Yes,
Are you aware of whether or not that was disclosed to the Commonwealth as part of the normal discovery process?
no,
So the answer is no, the answer is no.
Following
Should let
your
this answer stand.
presentation of the PowerPoint to us, at some point, did you receive from Mr. Burgess an amended report, an amended PowerPoint?
I received an amended PowerPoint by Mr. Burgess, not from him, though, from you.
Fair enough, fair enough. Did that report, or did that PowerPoint, however you want to put it, markedly, was it any
One of them.
different than his January 2025 report?
Yes,
Did you note any conclusions? Did you note the conclusions that he came to in January 2025? Going back to the original report,
yes,
did you note conclusions and opinions that he came to in May of 2025?
yes,
Sure is.
Were those two things different?
Sustained.
Were the conclusions, not his
Number
opinions,
8.
were his conclusions different?
That was 8, right?
Sustained.
9.
Was there any difference in the two reports?
there was.
Tell me the differences.
In the first report, Mr. Burgess did some of the calculations that are necessary to correct or adjust the times based on certain approaches. but never went through the final step of applying those calculations to the times and coming up with a final time. In the supplemental report, he then essentially took that analysis to the end. He approached it in a new way, a different way than he had previously laid out in the first report, but then he also took it all the way to the end by applying those calculations to the times.
What were the main differences? Explain for the court and for the jurors, what were the main differences that he changed in the May 2025 report?
Contrasting it with the original
Correct.
report. In
Right.
the original report, he laid out some methodologies for correcting the clock using phone calls that were shared between the vehicle and Mr. O'Keefe's phone. And in the supplemental report, he moved away from the phone call analysis and moved to attempting to align the clocks using a shared maneuver between the vehicle and the phone.
What was the shared maneuver?
It was a 3-point turn.
Was that the same analysis that he had in January 2025?
He did not have that analysis in the January 2025 report.
Thank you. Based on,
And in case you're wondering, yes, the Commonwealth did release a legal document saying that they can't talk about this, but I don't know the ruling. I'll see if I have the document on my phone.
the new
morning.
information in the May 2025 report, what was the effect, as you see it, regarding the possible scenarios?
There you go.
So I did the exact same process I did using the supplemental report as I did on the first report. And when I ran all those numbers and those calculations, it turned out there are now some scenarios in which the phone lock occurs after the end of the event. There's some scenarios where the phone lock occurs simultaneously, like literally at the same second. And there are some scenarios where it occurs before. So now there's a range.
So, Mr. Burgess's report, his new report, his amended report, widened that gap to allow him to opine that there were scenarios that occurred after the phone lock event, correct?
Objection.
The objection sustained.
Is that 10?
Did you prepare a PowerPoint presentation in furtherance of clarifying Mr. Burgess's analysis?
Objection.
Sustained.
Did you seek to clarify Mr. Burgess's analysis?
11?
Sustained.
Your Honor,
12?
may we approach?
Yes.
That's why it's sustained what you see on your screen right now. This was submitted by the Commonwealth, trying to block them from having their witnesses testify anything about Shannon. They didn't? Let me roll it back and see if I missed that.
The phone lock event, correct?
Objection.
The objection sustained.
Did you prepare a PowerPoint presentation in furtherance of clarifying Mr. Burgess's analysis?
Objection.
Sustained.
Did you seek to clarify Mr. Burgess's analysis?
Objection.
Sustained.
Your Honor, may we approach?
Yeah, he objected to all those. This is like a tennis match between the objections and the questions. We're not getting answers. We're just having to go back and forth between them. 13. So this is a document that the Commonwealth submitted to block them from talking about Mr. Burgess after they're the ones that put Mr. Burgess on the stand because they didn't do their homework. You're right. They don't want the BS coming out. You said it. You know, we have to ask, though, if the jury can see this and if we even have a chance if they're not tainted. So maybe they see it and they just have to go a certain, I don't know. I don't want to think of the justice system being this way, but that's what we're faced with. Because Bev's territorial. I don't know the exact reason, but Bev would not. She would not. But her brother, I think you guys said the brother, had represented Chris Albert in his 94 DUI manhunt because he went on the run afterwards after he unalived somebody with his vehicle. He was intoxicated. Tell me there's no connection. They're not related at all. They don't have any kind of a relationship, right? But this is the Commonwealth trying to block the defense with this document right here on the screen.
May I?
Yes.
Did you prepare a PowerPoint presentation in furtherance of your analysis?
Yes.
What was the reason, and what was the purpose for your PowerPoint presentation?
I needed to include in my analysis the approach and the conclusions from the supplemental report by Mr. Burgess.
May I have a moment, Your Honor?
Yes.
May I approach?
Yes.
If you would mind taking a look at that document, it's a multi-page document I just handed you, and just flip through it and let me know once you've familiarized yourself with it.
I bet you he didn't too. I know you guys.
What is that document?
This is a printout of the PowerPoint presentation that I prepared.
Is it true and accurate,
Yes,
and it's complete?
it appears to be.
Your Honor, I would move for its admission, please.
I have no objection.
Okay.
May I have that back, please?
Surprise, surprise. Hank didn't object to that.
208.
Right? Yeah, it could be an easy appeal, but her life will be derailed for the rest of her life if she is found guilty by
Your
trying to
permission to
appeal. Her
display
life
the
will be
PowerPoint
completely
presentation.
over.
Okay.
Mr. DeSober, can you still see with the lights off sufficient to see what's on the screen and what's in front of you?
Yes.
Okay. Do you recognize what's on the screen?
Yes,
What is that?
that is the title page of the PowerPoint that I prepared.
And what is how would you describe the PowerPoint?
So this PowerPoint is largely identical to the first PowerPoint I prepared in that it seeks to take all of the different approaches between the initial Burgess report, the supplemental Burgess report, and Dr. Welcher's report, lay out all of those approaches in one kind of coherent fashion so we can look at what conclusions we can draw from all of that data.
With the court's permission, can we go to slide 2?
Yes. Mr. Jackson, you can just use this PowerPoint. It's in evidence. You don't have to ask slide to slide.
Thank you, Your Honor. Taking a look at this next slide, what is this? What are we looking at?
This is a slide from Dr. Welcher's presentation that I was provided. Specifically, this is his slide number 33.
And what does it show?
This is where he introduces the first, acknowledgement that there's a difference between the time that Aperture calculated for the end of event 1162-2
I know.
and the lock event on Mr. O'Keefe's cell phone.
Is there anything in this slide that you disagree with in Mr. Welcher's presentation that you disagree with? It's up on the...
I added the 2 green boxes and the text, the word after. That's not Dr. Welcher's. And I added that because it's stated here that the event occurred within 26 seconds. But if we do the math, and he actually does the math, he really means after. It means the phone lock event occurred 26 seconds after the end of the vehicle event as calculated.
Move to strike.
I'm going to allow it.
Oh, Bev allowed.
The phone interaction
Matthew
happens
DeSoto.
how many seconds after the text stream event?
Based on this slide, 26 seconds.
Thank you. And the text stream event that we're talking about is what number?
1162-2.
And this slide, other than the green, is this slide or the portion of the slide that we're looking at, other than what you've described, is this directly from Mr. Welcher's own analysis or his PowerPoint?
It's 2 allowed.
Right. I added the green box around within, the dashed green box around the whole paragraph, the line, and the words after. Those are my additions.
Let's go to the next slide. Can you tell us what this is?
This
There's
is
two.
more or less a repeat of what's on the first slide, but just shown with a little more focus. The first slide is a little busy. So what
I'm sorry, Mr. DeSogra, did you create this or is this from Dr. Welcher's report?
I created everything on this slide apart from in the top right. That came from Dr. Welcher's slide 33.
Although you created the slide, where's the data coming from for this slide?
All of the data on this slide and all of my subsequent slides comes from the Aperture reports collectively, either Dr. Welcher's report or slides or Mr. Burgess's first and second reports.
What did their analysis reveal in terms of the time, the exact time of the lock event for Mr. O'Keefe's phone?
So in their analysis, in Aperture's analysis, they report the Lexus event 1162.2 ends at 12:31:43. And they also report there's a phone lock at 12:32:09. So if we just simply take the difference in those two times, we get 26 seconds.
If you were to add the 5 seconds back to 12:31:38, which is the actual trigger event, what would you come up with?
31 seconds.
Which of the two, in your expert opinion, which of those two numbers is more accurate as it relates to the trigger event?
If we wanted to conduct the analysis relative to the trigger, it would be better to use the actual trigger time. However, as long as we're consistent through the analysis, it's not entirely wrong to use the end. It would be wrong if I suddenly switched up and started talking about this relative to the trigger event, but they present it as the end of the event, so I conduct the rest of my analysis using that convention.
Is another word for the end of the event the end of the recording?
End of the recording, yeah. When I say event, what I mean by that is the data event, the data recording event.
But the trigger event itself, 12:31:38.
Correct.
I know,
Did
me
you
too.
put a name on this gap, if you will, this time frame?
Yes, I did. For the sake of the rest of the analysis that I'm going to do, I thought it would be helpful to just refer to this difference in time as John's interaction window.
And that refers directly to the interaction with the phone, the human interaction of locking the phone.
The 12:32:09 lock.
Okay, let's go to the next slide, please. What does this slide show us?
So here, what I'm doing is I'm kind of laying out the bounds of what I mean in John's interaction window, which should make, you have a lot of numbers to go through here. And so this should give us a very easy metric for kind of determining whether we have an event before or after. So what I mean by that is when we calculate John's interaction window, if that number comes out and is positive, that means the phone interaction occurs after the end of the vehicle event. And if we calculate John's interaction window and that number becomes a negative value, then that means the phone interaction occurs before. So now we have just a convention we can use really quickly to say, is it positive or is it negative? And we can maybe spare ourselves some of the math with 1,000 numbers.
So positive means what? One more time.
Positive, John's interaction window positive means the phone lock occurs after the end of vehicle event 1162-2.
Got it. Let's go to the next slide, please. What does this slide show us?
So what I'm saying here, I'm kind of laying the foundation for why we're going to even do this. Why do we need to start doing math on these clocks? So fundamentally, the phone, Mr. O'Keefe's phone, and the vehicle, Ms. Reed's vehicle, they're separate clocks. And it's very unlikely that they're going to be aligned perfectly in time. Right? If I compared my watch to your watch, it would probably be off. And that's the same case for any two independent clock sources. So Aperture, in their collective reports, propose a number of different ways in which that can be corrected. So I'm going to go through all of those ways that Aperture has proposed and show if we align the clocks based on how they laid out, does John's interaction window stay positive or does it ever become negative? Where does it end up when we run all those analyses? Or another way to put it is, does the phone interaction always occur after the end of the vehicle event?
And what did you determine?
Based on the initial reports,
Yes.
the phone interaction always occurs after the end of the vehicle event.
Did all of the information that's on this slide come from the same source or multiple sources, meaning Mr. Burgess and Dr. Welcher?
In the PowerPoint as a whole, all the information comes from the Aperture reports collectively,
Okay.
from Dr. Welcher and Mr. Burgess.
That's right, Mark, sure is.
Did Mr. Burgess make any adjustments from his original report to his subsequent report in May of 2025?
Yes.
Let's go to slide 6, please. Tell me about this slide.
Yeah, so this is the first adjustment we're going to talk about that was, and this one comes from Mr. Burgess's original report. And to summarize this adjustment, this is a key on timing adjustment, and we're going to show that the key on, the actual turning of the vehicle on, occurs about 3 seconds before that time gets registered in the infotainment. So the time we see is basically stale by 3 seconds.
We're all familiar
That's right.
with how computers turn on. When you say key on, do you mean a physical key or could it be a push button to turn the car on?
In this case, it's a button. I refer to key on because generally that event is considered the key on in vehicle parlance, regardless of whether there's a physical key or it's a push button.
So those
Thank
3
you, Miss
seconds
Heather.
mean what? What's the difference between pushing that button and the 3 seconds later that you just described?
It means that when we're trying to use the timestamps that were recovered from the infotainment system that show when the vehicle was keyed on or turned on, that the vehicle was actually or likely turned on 3 seconds before that.
Do you know where the 3 second conclusion came from in Mr. Burgess's report?
That came from the testing that Aperture conducted with the exemplar Lexus that they purchased.
Was there anything in the report that indicated testing, this type of exact testing on Miss Reed's actual Lexus?
No.
Do you have an opinion as to whether or not all Lexuses, at least of this make and model and year, would have the exact same 3 second delay?
I
Or
agree,
could that be
Jess.
different?
It could be different in their testing. In their testing, they only tested one exemplar vehicle. So I think there was a solid foundation that the exemplar that was used exhibited this 3 second delay. It was a very close match in terms of part numbers and software versions to Ms. Reed's Lexus. But without any kind of testing of, let's say, a second vehicle, a second exemplar, we wouldn't know, we wouldn't have any basis to say it must be 3. We could test a second vehicle
Hi, Kath, how
and
are
it could be
you?
5. So we say, well, there's a delay, but it varies vehicle to vehicle. They could have tested a second vehicle and found it's also 3, and then you start to build some confidence that maybe it is 3 across every vehicle. But with only testing one and not testing the subject vehicle, it is difficult to say with absolute certainty it would be 3 seconds.
What is your opinion about best practices with regard to trying to create this gap for purposes of coming to an opinion or an analysis?
So because we don't know whether or not this specifically would apply to Ms. Reed's vehicle, the best way to conduct that analysis would be to do the entire thing with the key switch adjustment at 3 seconds. Because if we're going to use a value, 3 is the most reasonable one because that's the one shown in testing. But we should also do the entire analysis without it in case we feel that that's the most appropriate. So in fact, that's what I do and will show is I ran the analysis both ways, with and without, to be as conservative as possible.
Did your review of Mr. Burgess's report indicate that he ran the analysis both ways?
He did not.
Let's go to slide 7.
What? You don't
What are we
say.
looking at here?
This is an excerpt from Mr. Burgess's original report. His page 28 and his page, there's a screenshot also from his page 30 at the bottom. And this is where he states in that report that when they were doing the testing with the exemplar, they observed across 4 different key-on cycles this 3-second difference. So what I mean by that is they had a video camera in the car that had a timer on it. And so in the video, you can see the button pressed. So in their testing, for example, they pressed the button at 21:48:05, and that's sort of nailed down. When they went back and downloaded the data from the infotainment, the key-on was logged in the infotainment as 21:48:08. So there's the 3 seconds. That's where they're getting that from. And that's what he states highlighted in red there. It's a little hard to read, but it basically says the average across 4 runs was 3 seconds.
The 3-second delay, was that actually in his report?
This is the only point in the report it's mentioned.
And I guess what I'm asking, it was an inartful question. The portion to the left, is that his report or your report?
That is his report. Everything on the left-hand side of this slide comes from Mr. Burgess's report.
So the 3-second delay was noted in his report.
It was noted.
But the Commonwealth decided to cherry pick it.
He applied the 3 seconds in his analysis.
He did not.
Did he indicate in his report why he ignored that 3-second delay?
He did not.
Sustained as to that question.
I'll rephrase it.
Strike the answer.
Did he indicate
I did not hear an objection that time. And she struck the answer.
in his report the reason that he did not apply the 3-second correction?
He did not.
When you do apply the 3-second correction, what do you come up with as it relates to the 26 seconds from the end of the recording?
So the positive 26-second window, if we only apply the 3-second key on, grows to positive 29 seconds.
If you applied the same 3 seconds to the trigger event time, now what does the gap?
That gap would grow to a positive 34 seconds.
Between the trigger event and what?
The phone lock.
In your opinion, was it best practice to not account for that 3-second delay between the on switch and the data coming on?
Sustained, ask it differently.
What, in your opinion, would be the best practice in terms of this 3 seconds that was noted in the exemplar vehicle?
The best practice would be to run the analysis with that adjustment included and without that adjustment included. Because like I stated, without testing of an additional vehicle, we really don't know if the 3 seconds is just a specific behavior of that exemplar or if it's representative of all Lexuses of this type.
Let's go to slide 8, please.
Good morning. How are you?
Tell us what we're looking at in this slide.
So now we're going to get into the next adjustments. That first adjustment we just talked about was really a vehicle-to-vehicle adjustment. We haven't talked about the phone yet. We're going to get into the phone now and talk about aligning that. But we had to get through the internal adjustment that has to get done first.
Well, let me give you a little catch up on one thing. The day started off with the defense making a motion to dismiss based on insufficient evidence, amongst many other things. And Bev's immediate response was denied. Denied. Didn't happen. That's why we're here early.
Now we're going to look on the subsequent slides here at all
Hi,
of the
Kristen.
different ways
I hope you are
the
too.
Aperture reports compared the vehicle to Mr. O'Keefe's phone.
Is there any additional adjustment that you believe should be made?
The Aperture reports
I know she was expected, but I like to. All right, listen. When I started 2025, I said for once in my life, I'm going to try to be a glass half full kind of girl. Because I'm never a glass half full kind of girl. And I've been trying, but 2025 has been testing me. So I at least wanted to hope that there was a chance. That's where that came in.
lay out two methodologies for adjusting. There is a methodology based on phone calls, and there's a methodology based on the 3-point term
And where did you get that information
from the Aperture reports.
In Mr. Burgess's original report on differentiating, the January report, which did he use to determine his determination of the clock skew?
In his initial January report, he never actually takes the calculation to the end by applying the differences in times to the calculated time for 1162-2, but he does do the math, which I'll show, for the differences on these phone calls.
In terms of Dr. Welcher's report, did he identify a GPS point of 154 at all?
Yes.
How did he describe that GPS data point?
He describes in his initial PowerPoint slides as 0.154 aligning with the end of
Me too.
vehicle event 1162-1, talking about a different event now. This is the 3-point turn event. So he uses that as an anchor point.
And that anchor point you said was the end
Baby, you okay?
Yes.
of the text stream event, or the end of the recording of that text stream event.
Correct. The Aperture reports consistently reference everything from the end of the events.
It's funny you say that because me and Catnip did a reenactment experiment to see if it does fly into space. But we did it on Fortnite and we went to the tallest cliff so we had the best chance to reach outer space. We tried it on 5 vehicles and none of them flew. We did put that in a video, by the way.
Let's go to slide 9.
Thank you,
please.
Renee.
What are we looking at here?
On the left
It's in my
is an
videos.
excerpt of page 33 from Mr. Burgess's initial report. And what he shows here is he has identified 7 call logs that exist both in the infotainment from Ms. Reed's Lexus and
Before this gets into it, hold on a second. Kathy, the reason we started early, there was a motion to dismiss and they laid it out beautifully and it was denied. That's why we're here early. And how many objections are we on now? 14? 14 objections, I believe it is. And he is brilliantly showing how Shannon's report wasn't exactly right.
in Mr. O'Keefe's phone. He puts them in a table form. Then he actually goes on and calculates the difference between those two
know,
times.
right?
So that's what I meant by he sort of does the math. He makes my job a little easier and the numbers are already there. He just never applies these to any of the times. So that's where I step in and say, if I take that third column
Sure
that
doesn't.
he lays out, those are in seconds. If I apply
Jesus had an
apply
objection. Okay.
those seconds, that adjustment to 12:31:43, where do we end up with John's interaction window in those times?
What did you conclude in terms of finishing the work?
Sure, I did all of them. And so I highlight on this particular slide, I just highlighted the very first one he has in here. In that case, he identified that Mr. O'Keefe's phone was 2 seconds slow relative
Not only did we try an SUV, we tried a school bus, we tried a taco truck, we tried a motorcycle and a Corvette. None of them flew.
to the infotainment system. So if we apply only that adjustment, then John's interaction window becomes positive 28 seconds.
Did Mr. Burgess apply all of the potential offsets?
He didn't apply any of the offsets. He calculated all of them, but he didn't apply any of them.
Did you ultimately apply all of the offsets?
Yes, I did.
And what did you determine?
Regardless of which offset you apply, John's interaction window remains positive. The number changes, but it remains positive.
Let's take a look at those one at a time if we can. Let's have the next slide.
So in this slide, I just took the other end of the spectrum. There's a large range in values in this table. He doesn't actually, Mr. Burgess doesn't show the sign conventions on here, but actually
Sign conventions.
sign conventions, he doesn't show when he calculates the difference, whether it's positive or negative. All the numbers in the table don't have a sign, don't have a plus or minus in front of them, but there's an implication. Some of them are plus, some of them are minus. So the first one that we just looked at showed we had 2 seconds slow. There's another value in here that's on the other end of that. It shows that Mr. O'Keefe's phone is 21 seconds fast now relative to the infotainment. So that's the largest value in the table we could take that would bring John's interaction window down now. And so if we apply just that adjustment, John's interaction window becomes a positive 5.
Take a look at slide 11, if we could, please. What are we looking at here?
So I've shifted now from the phone calls, and now we're going to talk about the 3-point turn alignment. And the 3-point turn alignment is first presented in Dr. Welcher's slide from his presentation
I fell asleep at like 1:30, so you're not alone.
here. And in this, he doesn't say it explicitly, but he provides some math on the screen, which is a little hard to read. But he puts some math on the screen that shows he's aligning this 0.154 from Mr. O'Keefe's phone to the end of event 1162-1. This is the prior event. This is a 3-point turn. And so
Does anybody remember? I know you guys said who it's from. I thought I wrote it down, but I didn't. No, what company he's with. Something with a V.
he aligns, he says this is basically how you align it. and
Delta V, thank
He
you.
doesn't do the math.
I'll write it
Again,
down now.
he lays out that he says a 19.2 second difference. I actually just adjusted that to 20, which is the most conservative way to interpret that. I don't think we have the accuracy here to talk about tenths of a second. Nevertheless, I just rounded that up to 20. And when we apply that 20 seconds to our event 1162-2, then John's interaction window becomes positive 6. That's just applying this. We're not combining anything. We're just applying the difference shown in this slide.
And that positive interaction window, is that calculated based on information directly from Dr. Welcher's report?
Yes.
Let's go to slide 12. What are we looking at here? What is this table?
This is a table I made. We've talked about a lot of different approaches to how these clocks can be aligned and a lot of different variables. So I tried to summarize them in one table, put them all together, because some of them we can combine. We can combine the key on with either a phone call or a 3-point turn, but we can't combine, for example, a 3-point turn and a phone call. That's not valid. So I put all the possible combinations, all of them, with, without key switch, phone calls and 0.154 on one table, and I calculated John's interaction window for all valid combinations from the Aperture reports. And when we do that, the result is that regardless of what adjustment we make, all of the numbers are positive, meaning regardless of what adjustment we make, the phone lock event always occurs after the end of event 1162-2.
Did Mr. Burgess, in your review of his report in January of 2025, did he ever undertake all possible offset calculations?
No,
In his May 2025 report, did he undertake all possible offset calculations?
no.
What is your opinion in terms of best practices regarding calculations of this sort?
It sounds like he might have needed he might have needed a degree for that to be able to be worked out.
I think if there's sufficient data, if there's testing or research or literature that in a specific case supports there is a best path or a best method, then we should use that. In this case, I don't think there is a best practice. There isn't any literature I'm aware of that would specify exactly the best path to align all of these. So in the absence of any external data to support one path, the most valid approach is look at all of them as a whole and then draw the conclusion from the totality of that data, rather than cherry picking a single point.
Can you testify to a reasonable degree of scientific certainty whether all potential offsets that were described in Aperture's original report, January of 2025, result in a positive interaction window?
Yes.
And what is that opinion?
Regardless of what adjustment or combination of adjustments we
Matthew DeSober with Delta V.
make from the original reports, John's interaction window remains positive.
Does the positive interaction window mean the lock event occurred after or before the text stream event?
It means the lock event occurs after the end of the text stream event, 1162-2.
Thank you for the follows.
You've already indicated that you received a second report, May of 2025, correct?
That's correct.
In that report, is there the same clock skew alignment or a different clock skew alignment that Mr. Burgess now undertakes?
Mr. Burgess undertakes a different alignment in that report.
Let's go to slide 13. Describe what we're looking at in this slide.
Right.
So what I have here on the left is a screenshot of page 42 from Mr. Burgess's supplemental report. And so now he's done two things new here. He's identified a new method for aligning the data based on the 3-point turn. So now he's kind of following where Dr. Welcher started, but he's approaching it a little differently. And secondly, he is now calculating the actual time. He's doing the difference calculation and he's applying that to the time. So now he's taking the calculation all the way through, which is a little different from the prior reports. And so when he does that, he makes my job really easy because I didn't have to do really any math now. He comes up that there is a range now. So prior to this point, the original report by Mr. Burgess and Dr. Welcher reports all used discrete points in time, right? They sought to find an event that occurs at a singular second and another event at a singular second and align based on that. This is a little bit of a departure from that approach. Mr. Burgess is now using a range of times, a range of uncertainty. He basically assesses that the 3-point turn data from the phone,
Thank you,
and the
Connie.
3-point turn data in 1162-1 cannot be precisely aligned down to a single point. Rather, they overlap in this range of seconds. And so he then says that that range must be applied. So now we have to apply a range. And what we end up with is 9 possible values. So it kind of looks like one conclusion, but really there's 9 conclusions on this slide. And so if we just applying the math he has in the supplemental report, John's interaction window now has a range of 9 possible values. And that range spans from +5 now to -3. So we
Thank you,
have
Kat.
5 positive values. We have 1 value that's 0, and the 0 would mean it's simultaneous. And then we have 3 negative values.
Does Mr. Burgess indicate in his report that any one of those values is more likely than any of the other values?
he does not provide any data or analysis to support 1 point being preferential over the other 8.
And are there more or fewer
Hi, Jen.
positive results in his analysis than negative?
Thank you.
There are more positive numbers in that range of 9 than there are negative numbers.
Does Mr. Burgess's new data indicate anything about Dr. Welcher's analysis about the GPS data point 154 being at the end of the
Thank you,
3-point turn?
Monica.
He opines in that aligning the 3-point turn on a singular point is not, and I'm paraphrasing because I don't know the exact way he states it, but not the preferred method.
Is Mr. Burgess's analysis
Preferred?
consistent or inconsistent with Mr. Welcher's determination that GPS point 154 was at the end of the text stream event?
Objection.
Sustained.
Does
15.
Mr. Burgess, in his report, indicate whether he agrees or disagrees with Dr. Welcher's analysis?
I don't remember specifically.
In your opinion, I asked you about Mr. Burgess's report. Now I'm going to ask you about your opinion. In your opinion, is this new offset any more likely or
You're making
reasonable
me
than
hungry
any
now.
other offsets previously proposed by Mr. Burgess?
I don't think it is more or less likely. I think it is a valid approach, certainly. And so I think the results from the additional analysis should be included with the analysis of all of the results so far.
And none of those results are more or less likely than any of the others, correct?
Sustained.
Are any of the results, in your opinion, to a reasonable degree of scientific certainty, are any of the results any more or less likely than any of the others?
In my opinion, they're all equally weighted.
Did Mr. Burgess account for the 3-second offset that we talked about earlier in his May 2025 report, his new report?
I did not see any mention of that in his supplemental report, and certainly the 3 seconds isn't present in his math. I don't see it there.
Let's go on to slide 14, please.
So the math's not mathing. We knew that.
Describe what we're looking at here in this table.
This is very similar to the table we looked at previously, where I look at all possible combinations. Now, however, I just have a lot more data points to show, so I've had to break the table into 2 tables. So we're going to look at this, and then we'll look at slide 15 next, which is the second table. I just couldn't cram 30 lines onto one slide.
Let's move to the next slide then. Is this a
So there's
continuation of
the
the?
second half. So think of these as a singular table. I just had to split them up. If we head back to slide 14, we'll start there. So this slide, I'm not accounting for the key on, and that's the main difference between my 2 tables. Table 1, I'm not accounting for the 3-second key on. In table 2, I am.
When you
But-
say key on, you're talking about that 3-second delay.
Correct.
Okay, go ahead.
But again, I want to make sure we're thinking about this as a singular table because that's where we'll draw our conclusions from. So the first lines of the table, we've already seen those. Those were in my original table. I haven't changed those. That's the same math that's been there. All I did was I added the 9 points now from Mr. Burgess's supplemental report using the range he shows. And so now we can see if we include that, now we get some positive numbers for John's interaction window. We get that 0. And again, the 0 would imply that the end of event 1162-2 is happening exactly at the same second as the phone lock. So it's kind of not on one side or the other. So I think it should be thought of as separate. And then we have 3 negative values, which would imply that phone lock occurs before the end of 1162-2.
And did you already mention the one that was simultaneous?
When John's interaction window is 0, correct?
0.
That would imply simultaneity.
All right, is this 14 or 15? This 14, let's move to 15. No, this is
Same.
a continuation of that. Mentally, we'll just continue that same table?
Correct.
Okay,
Just a continuation. Imagine in your mind is just rows 16 to 30.
okay.
And it's the same thing, same format, except for now we're just adding in that key on adjustment because again, I think the analysis should be run with
I'm sorry,
and without it. And so now when we run this with the key on adjustment, we get 14 of these 15 are John's interaction window is positive to various degrees. And one of them, it's 0, again, simultaneous. And there are no negative values with this adjustment.
Can we go to the next slide, 16, please? What are we looking at here?
This is the summary then of that table, kind of a verbal summary of the giant 30-line table now. And if we look at all of the possibilities from all of the Aperture reports collectively, then we can draw some pretty straightforward conclusions. 25 of those 30 possibilities result in interaction with the O'Keefe phone
I agree.
after the end of event 1162-2. Looking at all the possibilities, 2 of the 30 result in interaction where it's simultaneous. That's the zeros, the present in both tables. And then looking at all 30, 3 of the 30 result in interaction with the phone before the end of event 1162-2.
Do you have an opinion as to which of these particular offsets that you've described, these 30 possibilities, should be applied in this case?
No.
Why is that?
Each of the approaches have their own individual strengths, and each of them have their own individual weaknesses. And there is not really any published literature, any research, or any testing done that I'm aware of that would suggest one really stands head and shoulders above another one of the methods. So I think the most fair way to present it is to look at, again, if we combine everything together, then we can draw some conclusions like this in terms of how many of the total result in one outcome or another.
Is every data point that we're looking at and that you've been talking about, are these all drawn directly from Aperture's reports?
That's correct. I have not proposed any methods for aligning the clocks myself. All of the methods that comprise these 30 are from the Aperture reports themselves.
Based on your analysis of the Aperture, or your review of the Aperture analysis, is there any ability to say to a reasonable degree of scientific certainty that the text stream event occurred after the last physical interaction with John O'Keefe's phone?
Yes, there would be three out of the 30 possibilities would result in that.
Do you have an opinion to a reasonable degree of scientific certainty that it did happen after the text stream event? Okay.
Sustained.
Of the 30, what's the percentage of possible events that occurred, possible scenarios, I should say, wherein the text stream event occurred after the last interaction with John's phone? What's the percentage?
So that's sustained.
You said it's 3 out of 30, correct?
Yes,
Is that 10%?
that is 10%.
Yeah, it's sustained and it's stricken.
What percentage is 3? Just do basic math for me. What is the percentage between 3 and 30?
Sustained.
If I told you hypothetically,
I'm going to see you type out for a second.
What's this one for? What's this one for? Objecting to math? Yeah. And this is the second sidebar on this witness. I know. But you know the jury sees this, right? They hear this. You're counting sidebars? Oh, it's 4? I thought it was 2. Did you count the ones from before the witness was brought up? Okay. Thank you. You're not the only one to wonder that, Peggy. It has a lot of us nervous. One second. Julie, are you in here? That's how. Yannetti looks very
Following your
nervous.
analysis of the totality of the possible scenarios,
nice to meet you too.
did you come to a conclusion that the vast majority, let me rephrase that, did you come to any conclusion about the numbers as they relate to the positive interactions versus the negative? And when I say positive versus negative, I'm talking about the phraseology that you used. John's phone interaction being in the positive side versus John's phone interaction being in the negative side.
His
Yes.
expression.
And what were those?
Of the 30 possibilities, 25 of them, it's a positive. John's interaction window is positive for 25 of them.
And only 3 were negative?
Correct. Only 3
Or
of the 30
angry.
were negative.
Okay, we can take that slide down.
Which is understandable.
Is there a data recorder
I'd be pissed.
on the Toyota SUV that we've been talking about, that 2021 Toyota SUV 570, that's designed to record impact?
Yes.
What is that? What is that mechanism?
That would be the airbag control module,
The ACM?
ACM.
Did you look at that?
I was provided a copy of the download from the ACM.
What did the data recorder indicate, if anything, related to any impact on January 29th, 2022?
There were no recorded events whatsoever on the ACM.
Did the vehicle control history record whether there was any history of a collision on that car, ever?
You got that right.
No.
What does the vehicle control history record specifically?
It records a lot of operational parameters about the vehicle. What I mean by that is it records things like what the driver is doing, for example, steering wheel angle, accelerator pedal position, whether the brake is being pressed. It also records what the vehicle is doing, for example, speed, or the engine RPM, or the accelerations of it.
Okay, so far today we had to start early because, excuse me, we had to start early because, well, the defense was filing motion to dismiss. And they had a really good argument lined out. However, Bev just said denied. So here we are. And so far, this is the first witness. This is Matthew DeSogra of Delta V. He essentially is going over everything that Shannon Burgess did and Welcher, but more specifically Burgess, and no me gusta. Not from them anyways. Not good. Good for us, not for them.
Does the TechStream data event indicate that there's and I'm talking about very specifically, the TechStream data, does that indicate whether or not there's a collision in the car?
No.
Does the TechStream data event mean that if you find a TechStream data event or a trigger?
You really think that, Beth? I think they were totally in line because the defense has not, or the prosecution, I'm sorry, has not proven beyond a reasonable doubt. Not even close. I believe that they were completely in line with asking for that, and I'm honestly surprised that they didn't do it a lot sooner. Thank you, Heather.
Trigger event, does that mean that the airbags are deployed?
No.
Does it mean that the vehicle impacted with something solid?
No.
Does it mean that the vehicle impacted with a pedestrian?
No.
You heard him.
You reviewed the raw TechStream data associated with the entirety of Miss Reed's vehicle, did you not?
Yes.
How many TechStream events or triggers were found on Miss Reed's vehicle during the course of the 8-month period prior to January 29th?
Objection.
So can you narrow that, Mr. Jackson?
Sure.
I object to the whole line.
And I need to see what's on there.
Hank just objected to the whole line of questioning. They're going into another sidebar. Ignore, guys, ignore. We're going on that mentality today. Maybe go back a little bit so you can hear that. Guys, just ignore.
2022.
There were no recorded events whatsoever on the ACM.
Did the vehicle control history record whether there was any history of a collision on that car? Ever?
No.
You're welcome.
What does the vehicle control history record specifically?
It records a lot of operational parameters about the vehicle. What I mean by that is it records things like what the driver is doing, for example, steering wheel angle, accelerator pedal position, whether the brake is being pressed. It also records what the vehicle is doing, for example, speed, or the engine RPM, or the accelerations of it.
Does the TechStream data event indicate that there's and I'm talking about very specifically, the TechStream data, does that indicate whether or not there's a collision in the car?
No.
Does the TechStream data event mean that if you find a TechStream data event or a trigger event, does that mean that the airbags are deployed?
No.
Does it mean that the vehicle impacted with something solid?
No.
Does it mean that the vehicle impacted with a pedestrian?
No.
You reviewed the raw TechStream data associated with the entirety of Miss Reed's vehicle, did you not?
Yes.
How many TechStream events or triggers were found on Miss Reed's vehicle during the course of the 8-month period prior to January 29th?
Objection.
So can you narrow that, Mr. Jackson?
Sure.
I object to the whole line.
The whole line of inquiry.
I need to see what's on.
Guys, if someone has a different opinion than you, just don't engage. If you don't feel that it's a productive conversation, just don't engage, please. Here, we're respectful of people no matter what their opinion is, even if we don't agree with it.
I'm not curbing you in any way, we just.
Understand. Respectfully,
Wait, hold the hell on. What? Lesson of the day, be careful when fast forwarding because you might miss something. We're going to hear it again because I missed whatever they were saying before that. I don't know yet. We'll know in a minute, guys. You know what I just realized? I did my makeup and everything, and when they go on lunch, I could probably just go take a shower, but then I have to do my makeup all over again. I didn't think about that. Yeah, I'm going to because I'm not going to do my makeup. Here we go.
Okay. Mr. Jackson, how much longer? I'm just trying to figure out.
I'm wrapping it up, Judge.
Okay.
It's not gonna be long. A few more questions.
I'm not curbing you in any way, we just.
Understand, right? Respectfully, it won't be very much longer. You reviewed the text
Totally
stream
are
data,
curbing him. Good morning.
otherwise known as the triggers, for the entirety of Ms. Reed's vehicle, correct?
Yes.
How many trigger events did you find in the life of the car?
Not counting 1162-2.
Let's stop there. Right.
Prior to 1162-2, there were 19 prior events.
And 19 total events, correct?
Correct.
And how many collisions were clocked by any recorder on that car?
None of the events were triggered by a collision.
And last question, do any of the text stream events or do any of the data that you've reviewed, either yourself through Mr. Burgess's report, through Dr. Welch's report, do any of the data indicate that there was a collision on January 29th, 2022 at any time? Objection.
Ask it differently.
What's our
What did
counter
you
at
find
now?
in terms of, I want to narrow this question to January 29th, 2022. What did you find in terms of any data regarding a collision?
Neither of the events that occurred on that date were triggered by a collision.
Thank you. May I have just a moment, Your Honor?
17. Okay. Thank you. Well, actually, the bar just gave her the Person of the Year award, so I don't think they care. Here, let me show it to you in case you haven't seen it. I cannot believe that this happened. Still.
Okay. Jurors, we're going to take the morning recess. Some things that we need to do with the lawyers, that we're coming back at 12.
They're coming back at 12. There's things that she has to do with lawyers. That's, I didn't even think about that. To sway the jury. I didn't even think about that. Well, whatever work she has to do with the lawyers, they don't want us to see it. And sadly, Patience with Parameters is now over. We are completely caught up. I didn't know that, Melanie. The ceiling fan got itself a sticker. We have the sticker. Guys, show the ceiling fan stickers. Everyone has a sticker in here so far. Well, almost everybody. Where is the backdrop I want to use? There it is. Let me show you. We've got good old Hank. Yes, no, inches matter. Let's go. Yannetti the Superman. Defense Karen, ESPN, House Long. We got the kiddies. Not Guilty, Sister Wife, Sidebar. KRSG, which stands for Karen Reed Support Group. Do It, Dream Team. We have our second husband, Alessi, Free Karen Reed. That's all that fits in the chat thing, though. But those are our stickers. We play with them often and well. Good afternoon, Allison. But you guys wanted a fan, so I broke down and I did the fan too. Gotta give the fan its credit. Otherwise, we'd be watching the proverbial paint dry. Yeah, I actually started making a second one. Before we found out that there was a motion to dismiss, I was making a different mouse or a different rat one for Hank. Because that's was requested. Oh, let me show you. Oh, excuse me. Let me show you guys what I got to today for that one. That is what I got to so far as the revised rat for Hank. Which one do you guys like better? The sticker we have, or do you want me to put this one as a sticker? You guys asked. I delivered. I just have to submit it. I didn't have time because, like I said, I heard that they were trying to dismiss. You like this one better? Yeah, sure. 1 second. Only one side of it though, because it takes too long otherwise. And here we go.
This morning, motion for required finding for
Okay, I'll
not
switch
guilty
it
under
later.
Massachusetts Rule of Criminal Procedure 25A. I think that's
Yes.
before the court. My comments will be relatively brief, but it's important, and the points that I'm going to make in the next couple of seconds or next couple of minutes are equally important. It comes down to the following. The Commonwealth has simply not proven, even in a light most favorable to them, that there was a collision on January 29th, 2022 at 34 Fairview in Canton, Massachusetts. There was no collision proven to have occurred. There was no eyewitness presented. There was no video evidence, no audio evidence, no evidence in the form of physical evidence at the scene by searches that were done by officers on the morning of January 29th, 2022. The Commonwealth, through suspect experts based on circumstantial technical data, only sought to prove a backing event, and that's important. They sought to prove that at 34 Fairview, the SUV went backward. They did not prove, and every single one of their experts was asked this question,
Thank you for the follow.
they did not prove that there was actually a collision associated with that backing event. The Commonwealth expert
Actually, Jess, they do. But by the time they got around to asking for it, it was already deleted. The chief of police right across the street, he had one too. They never asked for it in their investigation.
said at best that the car went in reverse.
Thank you, Catnip.
And it was suspect whether it went in reverse at 34 Fairview or some other place, time, or date. The Commonwealth also put on an expert who said that she found no injuries, none, mind you, indicative of a vehicle strike on John O'Keefe's body. And she, Dr. Irini Scortibello, was arguably their most important witness. The Commonwealth cannot and did not say or prove a collision at a particular time, a collision at a particular place, a collision with a particular person, or that a collision even occurred on January 29th, 2022 at or around or at or after 12:30 in the morning. Their own expert, I think it was yesterday, if not the day before yesterday, was asked on examination by Mr. Alessi can you tell us the particulars of the collision, pardon me, as you suggested in your testimony? And his answer was, there's simply not enough evidence. He was asked specifically, why didn't you try to recreate the circumstances, the force impact? That's what you do, sir. You're a biomechanic expert. Recreate it for us.
Sure did.
And he said, there's not enough evidence. There is evidence, however, that Brian Higgins and Brian Albert were sparring at 34 Fairview. There is evidence, however, that that was just minutes, not hours, not days, minutes before John O'Keefe ultimately met his fate at 34 Fairview. There is evidence that Brian Higgins was love-struck, that he was jealous, that he was aggressively coaxing John O'Keefe out of the waterfall, that he was passively aggressively coaxing Miss Reed to engage with him rather than John O'Keefe. Again, there was not a single eyewitness to a collision. There was not even a single eyewitness to a backing event at 34 Fairview. The court will recall Jennifer
Good morning,
McCabe
Maggie.
testified that she basically watched the SUV
Hi,
the
Pooh Bunny.
entirety of the time it was in front of the location at 34 Fairview with Miss Reed in the driver's seat. She saw it pull up.
To give you guys a rundown if you're just coming in, this is the motion to dismiss that was filed. We actually started late because they filed a motion to dismiss and he's given this argument. We're going back there on their first break. Many people missed it, so we went back for people that needed to hear it again. That gives us time to have patience with parameters. That means we get more wiggle room to fast forward. How you guys doing?
Once, she saw it pull up twice, she saw it pull up a third time, and then she saw it was gone. And at no time did she ever see the car go in reverse. She certainly didn't see the SUV go in reverse at a high speed, and she darn sure didn't see the car go in reverse at a high speed and strike a pedestrian. Her focus was defined enough to see thin tire tracks in a dusting of snow, thin enough, I think the phrase was, to track a cat. That's how detailed she was in her observations, yet she did not see John O'Keefe hit by an SUV. She did not see John O'Keefe's body in the snow, in the yard, laying prostrate, a 216-pound, 6'1" man in the snow, directly in front of the SUV she was tracking the entire time. There are two other witnesses, Ryan Nagel, Heather Maxson. They both noted that John O'Keefe, not that they didn't see him, Your Honor, that John O'Keefe was not in the vehicle when they were behind him. The dome light was on. They could see inside the interior of the vehicle. Miss Reed was sitting there with her hands at 10 and 2, and the passenger seat, notably and markedly, was empty. He was not outside the vehicle. He wasn't standing. He wasn't sitting. He wasn't lying down. There's only one place he could be: inside the curtilage of the home, inside the house, or inside the garage. Not one witness that was inside the house, not one passerby, not one neighbor, not one plow driver ever saw John O'Keefe's body laying prostrate in the snow that morning. Not one. Not until Karen Reed found Mr. O'Keefe at about 6:03. And again, the Commonwealth's chief medical expert, Dr. Scortibello, their medical examiner, who is the only person that the court heard from or will ever hear from who actually investigated John O'Keefe's physical body, the only person to have physical access to John O'Keefe, testified he did not have any injuries consistent with being struck by a vehicle. But she did indicate that the injuries, as did the firefighters, the first responders, indicate that he had injuries consistent with a physical altercation. And certainly, as to counts 1 and 3, No evidence has been presented or proffered whatsoever by the Commonwealth that Karen Reed intended to run over and harm John O'Keefe in any way, shape, form, or fashion. Hearken to the video at C.F. McCarthy's. Hearken to the video at the waterfall. Every witness confirmed what our eyes could see. That night, John O'Keefe, Karen Reed were loving, caring, affectionate. There's absolutely no evidence that Karen Reed had it.
So whatever you had typed before, or does it happen later, I didn't get. So you might need to reword it. It might be auto-filtered through TikTok. I don't have filtering on, but you know how it goes. Thank you,
intent
Catnip.
to harm John O'Keefe, or that she absolutely, that after the fact, that she intended to leave him for dead, because there was no fact to be after. There was no collision in the first place. The Commonwealth's case, certainly on counts 1 and 3, taken separate from count 2, because of the mens rea associated with counts 1 and 3, fails miserably. The Commonwealth, at the end of the day, has presented their best case. They've done their best. Some would say they've done their worst. And their case has failed. No reasonable jury, hearkening back to the standard under Rule 25, no reasonable jury could find Karen Reed guilty of count 1, count 2, or count 3. But taking count 1 and 3 aside, those are separate counts because of the mens rea required and the high burden that's required, even taken in the light most favorable to the Commonwealth.
Guys, this is outside the jury presence before court started today. No, this is not. This is this morning when they filed a motion to dismiss. It was requested we go back because they're on a break. So we're going back so those that missed it could hear it again.
What evidence have they proven that Karen Reed intended to kill or harm John O'Keefe, or that she intended to leave him for dead in the snow? The answer is none, 0. No reasonable
It's already
jury
been.
could find Karen Reed guilty. This case never should have been brought in the first place. There are reasons that I won't go into here. The court knows those reasons, or knows our position on those reasons. This was a vindictive prosecution, and I believe that the court is duty-bound pursuant to the precepts of Rule 25A, as well as the principles of justice, to dismiss all 3 counts, and certainly taking count 1 and count 3 aside, the court is duty-bound to dismiss those 2 counts. Thank you.
I'm going to speed up his talking so that way we can get back quicker.
In the light most favorable to the Commonwealth, the first issue the court should look to is intoxication. A reasonable fact finder would find that the defendant was in fact intoxicated. Based on the sarin conversion, and based on Karen Reed's statements herself, you've heard many, many admissions by the defendant about her level of intoxication, which far surpassed the statutory mandate that she consumed alcohol in a way that would affect her ability to operate safely. Those are just 2 of the cornerstone pieces of intoxication, which are clear, light most favorable to the Commonwealth, a reasonable fact finder could find beyond a reasonable doubt. The evidence of collision is abundant. I do not want to go through an entire closing argument or rhetoric, but suffice to say there are taillight fragments from the defendant's own Lexus from her shattered right taillight that are found in Mr. O'Keefe's clothes. Mr. O'Keefe is left at the very spot where she expects to find him, according to her statements, where her car does a backing maneuver at least 24 miles per hour. He is left with injuries on his arm consistent with the damage to her Lexus right rear taillight. The scientific data is substantial. Telestream data, Apple Healthcare data, battery temperature data. And again, Ms. Reed's statements herself about clipping, hitting. The evidence of a collision in this case is overwhelming. It is a public way. Lieutenant Gallagher told us about Fairview as being a public way. And so as to the operating under the influence of alcohol manslaughter, the conduct of driving in that forward and backing maneuver after being intoxicated meets clearly the standard for OUI manslaughter. Regarding second-degree murder, As highlighted in my opening statement, the defendant engaged in intentional conduct. That was her maneuver of driving forward, stopping, and then driving back to
Yeah.
Mr. O'Keefe on January 29, 2022. Under the conditions that night, after being intoxicated, that conduct was intentional. And any reasonable person could find that her conduct that night created a plain and strong likelihood of death. There was no predicate of intending to kill or even intending to hit. There was clearly a plain and strong likelihood of death driving a 6,000-pound SUV forward and then back. In addition to state of mind, again, the defendant tells us herself. Through firefighter Becker, they're arguing, they're upset. We see the text messages, evidence of attempted breakup, and we hear the words of Karen Reed when she leaves numerous voicemails that night.
Yeah,
And you can
to
hear
make
her.
it abundantly clear, even Lori Daybell in her trial, her last trial, before she rested her case, did a motion to dismiss saying they didn't see that the prosecution had met the burden. However, that wasn't what this was. They had a whole layout for what it was. So this was quite a bit more, in my opinion.
Her voice. There are statements, I do not want to go through a summary of all of them,
I don't know,
but
Kelsey.
statements from the defendant herself where she
YouTube.
acknowledges an injury to Mr. O'Keefe. She's the last one with him, where to find him in her
No, I know where you can listen to them because every day that we cover this, I put the lives on my YouTube afterwards, so you can view the past ones there. The voicemails are in them.
hypothesis about hitting and clipping him. As to leaving the scene, again, the defendant tells us that when she leaves, he doesn't look mortally wounded. She leaves him, makes dozens and dozens
Okay.
of calls,
Definitely check it out. Same
but never goes
name.
back to help him and leaves him to die. And we heard from Dr. Wolf about the life-saving procedures that could have been initiated. The chance of survival was never given to John O'Keefe. All of those facts suffice under Lattimore, light most favorable to the government, that a reasonable fact finder would find beyond a reasonable doubt, or could find beyond a reasonable doubt, each and every element of each and every one of these charges.
She said, could I have? Did I hit him in the
Is
knee?
denied as to all three of those. On the other, I'd prefer to get started. I would like you and Mr. Brennan to talk, to see about the whole.
1 second. I talked over. I apologize.
Each and every element of each and every one of these charges.
All right, thank you. So the motion is denied as to all three of those. On the other topic that we were discussing at sidebar, I don't need to hear argument on that right now, Ms. Giannetti. I'd prefer to get started. I would like you and
There
Mr.
you
Brennan
have
to
it.
talk.
So now we're going to go back to, they're back from break. And don't worry, I'll put up a separate video because I did screen record Jackson's argument. I'll put it up after the live as well as the whole day of today. Just so you know. We went live because we thought, like, what the hell?
Hey, Mr. Brennan,
But he had really good arguments. Thank you for the follow.
Mr. DeSober, I'm going to ask that you keep your voice up because we're going to try and keep the air conditioning on. And the fans, it's a little stuffy in here, so if you just speak directly into the microphone, that would be great.
No problem, Your Honor.
Thank you.
May I proceed?
Please.
Good morning, sir. Sir, are you trying to offer an opinion suggesting that Ms. Reed's Lexus never hit John O'Keefe on January 29, 2022?
I'll allow it. Is that what you're doing?
Is that your opinion?
No, sir.
Are you offering an opinion that Ms. Reed's Lexus never got in a...
Hold on, I had it on speed up. I was wondering why they were talking so fast. Sorry about that. So we already have one objection from the defense, and they lost. Prosecution gets to ask and keep that answer on record.
collision before?
The way I stated it was none of the
Yesterday.
prior events were triggered by a collision.
What I'm asking,
This is Matthew DeSogra from Delta V. He's arguing essentially Shannon Burgess and Walter.
are you offering an opinion that Ms. Reed's Lexus never got into a collision before January 29, 2022, or on that day?
No.
So when you were talking about collisions to the jury, you weren't making any suggestion that that Lexus was not in a collision, are you?
I think you threw a double negative in there. Can you just clarify what you
can.
meant? Yeah.
You are not suggesting to this jury that Ms. Reed Lexus did not ever get in a collision before?
No.
Okay. You're just saying that there's no data on the text string to suggest a collision.
Specifically, none of the events were triggered by a collision. That's
Text stream data can be triggered by a number of different things other than a collision, isn't that true?
correct.
And in fact, when you talk about
Yes.
text stream data, you know that text stream data does not record a collision. You know that.
A collision is not one of the triggers. That's correct.
Right. So when you were saying it wasn't triggered by a collision, it's never going to be triggered by a collision ever on text stream data.
Not the collision in and of itself, correct?
Right. Right. So there's other things that will trigger text stream data,
Correct.
like sudden acceleration.
The only acceleration trigger that I'm aware of on TextStream is if there's a large acceleration during what Lexus calls a PCS or pre-collision safety event. But a large acceleration on its own, I do not believe is one of the triggers.
Are you sure you know a lot about text stream data?
Yes.
Objection. What the
You know a lot
hell?
about text stream data?
Yes.
And you're saying that if a car accelerates over 30%, in and of itself wouldn't initiate a trigger?
I'm not sure I understand.
You just said pre-collision is the only time sudden acceleration, from your perspective, would cause a triggering event. Now, I'm asking you,
I'm allowing this.
if someone accelerated Ms. Reed's Lexus at over 30% acceleration, would that cause a triggering event?
I am not sure what you mean by 30% acceleration.
Guys, they are objecting. Bev is allowing it. We have 2 objections and 2 Bev said, you know what, go fly a kite because I'm allowing. Well, she didn't say that, but that's my theory. We've missed you too. How are you?
Accelerator, 30%.
Accelerator pedal.
Yes.
Oh, yeah, there's a lot of triggers there's a number of ways that these VCH events can be triggered based on the accelerator pedal angle. I think, is that, yeah.
And what is the percentage from your experience that would create a triggering event?
There's various. Toyota, Lexus calls it high, medium to high is what they put it.
Do you have a number? Do you know the actual data?
I'll give you this one. I'll pause for a minute just to address this, and I'll do it one time. She didn't remember when she first woke up. She thought she left him at the waterfall. That's why. And she never said I hit him. She said, did I hit him? But I'm not going to answer any more of those. So, guys, please, just as well, don't answer anymore.
On what percent of pressing the accelerator on the same Lexus as Ms. Reed's would create a triggering event? You know.
Off the top of my head, I don't know the exact percentage down to this percentage point, no.
It's going to get crazy.
There is something different than the text stream data. That's the EDR data, correct?
Yes.
You would not expect, it would be abnormal for the EDR to register data based on a side swipe between a 6,000-pound Lexus and a 216-pound person, wouldn't it?
Objection.
I'll
They're doing this based on just a Lexus.
allow it.
That would be abnormal to register that data in the EDR, wouldn't it?
I don't know if I would use the word abnormal, but I would state it that there's a minimum threshold to record in the EDR, and a pedestrian impact generally wouldn't meet that.
I'm sorry.
A pedestrian impact generally wouldn't meet that, but I don't want to make a blanket statement as if it's always the
You're
case.
saying it would meet that,
Would not.
would not. And a side swipe or a clip has less force and impact than a head-on collision, depending on the speed, correct?
Generally, yes.
Kat, if you stop tracking, let me know so I could take over tracking, okay?
When you are discussing the triggering event. That is the moment that something registers to the car to capture data in the text string, correct?
Correct.
So if I was to suggest 30% of depressing the accelerator pedal would cause a triggering event, would the triggering event be when it reaches 30%?
Yes. The
Event data captures potentially part of an event, doesn't it?
I think we're into semantics a little bit, and I think it depends on what you mean by event. Because
Exactly.
previously we'd been talking about an event as the data, but event can mean a lot of other things.
If an event's only 3 seconds long and 10 seconds of data is captured, then the data will capture more than the event, correct?
Correct.
Are you used to people asking if it's only 3 seconds long, Hank?
If the event is longer, 15 seconds, 20, 25 seconds, and the data is only captured for 10, the text stream data only captures part of the event.
Correct.
Fair to say?
Very fair.
So when you're looking at the data, it doesn't tell you about the entire event, correct?
The data only tells us about the window of time the data captures. There's no way to know beyond that from the data.
All of your equations and pluses and minuses and graphs you're talking about deal with the 10-second text stream data that was captured, correct?
They deal with event 1162.2, right, and the 10 seconds it's comprised of. Actually, they really just deal with the end of the event. That's what everything in the Aperture reports referenced.
Fair enough. But it doesn't deal with anything that could potentially happen after those 10 seconds, does it?
No.
Or anything before?
No, it does not.
Less
The
than.
triggering event is spot in the middle, it captures 5 seconds before, 5 seconds after.
Approximately 5 seconds. It's not exact.
Right.
And you would have to look elsewhere for evidence to know what might have happened before. Yes?
Correct.
And you'd have to look elsewhere for evidence to see or determine what happened after.
Yes.
Do
I
you
like
know at the end of this triggering event, that 10-second window of data, do you know what happened with the defendant's Lexus after that 10-second of data?
No,
You have no idea, right?
I don't.
Okay. I want to just ask you some questions about your background and then leading into this case, if I could.
Okay, ask away. You're not gonna find he lied about a degree. I don't think.
You have a bachelor's degree and a master's degree.
That's correct.
You've worked for
Yes, John.
your company
Yeah.
for some time.
Johan.
Coming up on 13 years next month. Correct.
You've advanced through the company.
Yes.
You presently are the director of engineering.
Yes.
Are you ACTAR certified?
No.
What is ACTAR?
This is Matthew DeSogra from Delta V.
ACTAR is a body that basically offers a certification in accident reconstruction.
Do you offer services as an accident reconstructionist?
Sometimes.
And you have been hired and come into court and offer opinions as an accident reconstructionist?
In the singular time I've testified in court, it was not specifically for accident reconstruction, it was data analysis.
Okay. You continue your education and you go to a number of different trainings and seminars as well as teach, correct?
Regularly.
And when you regularly go to continuing education, you have quite a bit of continuing education that you've been through, haven't you?
Sorry?
You've been through quite a bit of continuing education.
Yes.
You focus as part of your specialty on EDRs, don't you?
That's correct.
Event data recorders.
Correct.
In fact, when you promote your services, that's one of your real specialty, isn't it?
Correct.
And it's something that not only are you schooled on and you go through continuing education, you're well published, aren't you?
That's correct.
And in your publications, you speak primarily about EDR type information.
Yes.
And that's something you are well skilled in, isn't it?
Yes.
Now, forensics or data forensics is a wide field, isn't it?
It is.
And you can do some things or many things in it, but oftentimes people specialize in parts of data forensics, don't they?
Defense.
Generally, yes.
Well, speaking of you, you specialize in EDRs, true?
Yes.
There is a difference in different subspecialties, isn't there?
In general,
Yes,
yes.
okay. Now, are,
Sir, I get it with like having like what the hell kind of expression, but don't do that. I need you to rein it in. We don't want to show that. We want to be as cool as a cucumber.
cell phones, is that a subspecialty
I know,
in
baby, I agree.
digital forensics?
Yes.
Is that something you're a specialist in?
No.
iPhones, are you a specialist in iPhones?
No.
Have you ever taken any specific training on mobile forensics?
No.
Have you ever written any papers on mobile forensics?
No.
Hey, have you ever promoted yourself as having any type of subspecialty as an expert in mobile forensics?
Never.
In any of your continuing education, and you have a vast amount, have you ever taken any classes or seminars in mobile forensics?
I know he is,
No.
Heather. Yeah. I'm just giving him advice like you could hear me.
Have you ever taken any class or study about variances between infotainment systems and mobile forensics?
Classes? No.
Have you ever attended any seminars on variances relative to mobile forensics?
No.
Have you ever testified about variances in mobile forensics before you testified in this court today?
No.
Have you ever published anything to do with variances in mobile forensics?
No.
In this case, you had an opportunity to review a number of reports from Dr. Judd Welcher, yes,
Yes.
and Mr. Shannon Burgess.
Correct.
In reviewing those reports, you've offered your opinions and analysis. Did you
I'm not
ever
salty.
engage in actually any efforts or study in this case to obtain data?
Could you maybe clarify what specifically you're asking?
Yes. Did you ever yourself, not watch someone else do it, did you ever download or obtain data in this case?
No.
Did you ever test Miss Reed's car?
No.
Did you ever get an exemplar vehicle to run any tests?
I did not.
No, Hank, because that costs. The fee for them doing all that costs about $400,000. Are you gonna shell it out again? I mean,
Did you ever do any actual testing in this case?
No.
And so your role is to look at other people's work and offer opinions and criticisms, basically.
And provide some clarity to the work, but generally, yes.
Clarity for who? Who asked you to provide clarity?
the defense.
My clients in this case,
You what?
Mr. Jackson, my client.
Did you ever speak to me?
No.
Why should he? I don't even want to speak to you. You're like, never mind.
As an expert, when you analyze data, whether you actively got it yourself or not, do you ever give an opinion in paper called a report? You ever write a report?
Yes.
And you've seen reports in this case that you've looked at, correct?
Correct.
A number of reports by Mr. Burgess,
Correct.
report by Dr. Welcher,
Also correct.
reports that you're critiquing, right?
Correct.
Did you see Ian Whiffin's reports?
I did not.
How about Jessica Hyde? Did you see her reports?
I did not.
You were asked to consider information from Mr. Whiffin's report.
No.
Well, you were asked to assume that the last user interaction on John O'Keefe's cell phone was 12/32/09.
That was
Okay.
stated in Dr. Welcher's report, so I started my analysis at that level.
So none of the information did you actually personally go and vet or analyze or make any determinations about. You're just critiquing written reports.
Correct.
Well, as an expert coming into court and testifying and having opinions, you put together a PowerPoint, didn't you?
Yes.
Why didn't you ever put together a report to share the basis of your opinions and the process you went through to arrive at your opinions before you came into court?
He didn't need to.
Primarily, I wasn't asked to, so I didn't do it. I wouldn't commission work without being asked to do it. And number two, the extent of my work beyond building the PowerPoint was just basic addition, just adding numbers together that already existed in the Aperture reports. So there wasn't a tremendous amount of complexity to what I engaged in.
What about your work product and your calculations? Did you do all this in your head, or did you type it out and
He had a
go through
calculator,
computer
Hank.
program? How did you do it?
I used a calculator for most of it, and the tables in my PowerPoint were generated in Excel, which has some calculation capabilities.
Were you ever asked not to write a report?
No,
You had provided an initial PowerPoint.
Think of it this way, Kelly. Look at how the prosecution looks for objecting nonstop. We don't want them to see the defense that way. We don't. We want to show it how it is. So I totally don't blame them.
yes,
And then you received information from Mr. Burgess,
yes,
and then you added new slides to your PowerPoint.
that's correct.
Mr. Burgess's report was May 8th.
Yes,
You provided your PowerPoint on May 25th.
correct.
Did it take you that long for the calculations between when you got the report and May 25th to put together the new presentation?
Nope.
Say yes, I had to change the batteries on my calculator.
It didn't.
Why did you wait until May
Damn,
25th
opportunity
to
missed.
provide the new information?
That's when I was asked to do it.
What do you mean by that? I just want to see what the date is today. Today's the 30th. When you finished your PowerPoint on May 25th, did you send it to the defense on May 25th?
Yes, I did.
But they had a copy of your PowerPoint
Good question,
on May
Allison.
25th.
Thank you.
Don't be shy.
No, I'm pretty sure it was the 25th.
So it's sustained.
Objection.
Yeah, if it wasn't the 25th, it would have been maybe the day after, but it's dated the 25th. I'm almost positive I provided it on the 25th. Yeah.
no reason for you to hold on to it for a couple of days.
No, I think it was the 25th.
Do you know when it was provided to the Commonwealth?
No. Let me
No, I
roll
don't.
it back.
In 20. It's to your PowerPoint.
That's correct.
Mr. Burgess's report was May 8th.
Yes,
Yeah,
You provided your
I wrote it
PowerPoint
back.
on May 25th.
correct.
Thank you.
Did it take you that long for the calculations between when you got the report and May 25th to put together the new presentation?
No, it didn't.
Why did you wait until May 25th to provide the new information?
That's when I was asked to do it.
What do you mean by that? I just want to see what the date is today. Today's the 30th. When you finished your PowerPoint on May 25th, did you send it to the defense on May 25th?
Yes, I did.
But they had a copy of your PowerPoint on May 25th. Don't be shy.
No, I'm pretty sure it was the 25th.
So it's sustained.
Yeah, if it wasn't the 25th, it would have been maybe the day after, but it's dated the 25th. I'm almost positive I provided it on the 25th. Yeah.
no reason for you to hold on to it for a couple of days.
No, I think it was the 25th.
Do you know when it was provided to the Commonwealth, that report?
No, I don't.
In 25th, the report that you provided to the defense on the 25th, it had new information, didn't it?
It had the information from Mr. Burgess's supplemental report. That was the addition.
This is the case of Karen Reed. She is accused of hitting her boyfriend, Boston cop, with her vehicle and leaving him there in the snow. If you missed anything on this case, I have every other day of the trial on my YouTube. I put it there every night. Michelle's Criminal Musings. Thank you,
Additions.
Parker.
Why did you wait until the 25th to put it together?
That's when I was asked to do it.
Who asked?
My clients, Mr. Jackson,
Approximately 2 weeks.
25th.
we had a phone call on the 25th and discussed Mr. Burgess's supplemental report. During that phone call, he asked me to update the presentation, and I did so, and then provided it.
How did the date of the 25th come about? Why the 25th was the date provided?
That's when he requested it. I think it was a Sunday, actually.
Thank you, Parker.
Okay,
Thank you.
When you first got involved in this case, it was last fall,
Correct.
and at that time, you received some information that Mr. Burgess wanted to look at the text stream data or the different modules on what you later learned was the defendant's Lexus, correct?
Correct.
And there was a proposal from Mr. Burgess. Mr. Burgess wanted to go back to the car and look at the modules and try to download more information from them, correct?
Thank you.
Correct.
And you then got involved to look at what his request was, the procedure that you wanted to follow.
Yes.
When you did that, were you given any materials about what had happened before you and Mr. Burgess both got involved?
I don't recall specifically, and I don't think so. I think I was just provided the notice of testing that was to be done.
Well, you ended up drafting an affidavit,
I did.
and in drafting affidavit, you pointed out some oversights of Mr. Burgess, didn't you?
I did.
Determining the oversights required some study of actually the data and the information that was available, wouldn't it?
Brian Albert.
It would.
So, can we presume that before you wrote the affidavit pointing out the oversights, you had looked at other materials?
If I recall correctly, the notice of additional testing from Mr. Burgess contained attached to it a whole report by him documenting why he thought there was an inadequate initial acquisition, why he thought the sizes were wrong. So I don't remember referencing anything beyond all the information that was contained in that. Now, whether that was combined by somebody else or not, I don't know. That's how it was provided.
Did you end up looking at the report of Ms. Gaffney and what had happened in the past with the download and search of Ms. Lexus?
Hank, please go back to the microphone so the rest of the class can hear you. Thank you for getting us to 50K likes, guys. I really do appreciate it. Thank you.
If I'm remembering right again, I think Ms. Gaffney's report was also attached to that same singular file.
You learned that the defense expert, Ms. Gaffney, had downloaded data from chips, correct?
Correct.
And Mr. Burgess was asserting that there was information missing and believed that there was missing information from the chips.
Correct.
In that form, it's sustained.
It's
It's stricken.
my apologies. The conclusion
Stricken.
Mr. Burgess had is that he believed there was missing information from the chips.
He did. He miscalculated the size of the chips.
Did you do any study to see if there was actually information missing from the original download?
Thank you.
No, I looked at the data sheets for the chips and then immediately realized what the error was. The data sheets specify a size in megabits or gigabits, and Mr. Burgess had written his report in the context of megabytes and gigabytes.
And then you asserted, or you took the position in your affidavit, that there should
Good
be
to
no
see you.
further chip lock, no further study of those chips, other than to ensure the amount of memory was sufficient.
It's not how I recall specifically what I said.
Well, let me read it because I don't want to try to align your words.
Please.
Mr. Burgess'
for the
proposed
follow.
protocol labeled reattempt chip-off acquisition is unnecessary because the file size of the acquisition performed by Ms. Gaffney already matches the expected memory storage capacity of the components.
That sounds accurate.
If you want to see this, I don't want to read from the document. If you need to see if it actually, just let me know.
That's fine. I trust your reading.
However, an acquisition may be conducted for the sole purposes of ensuring the contents of the memory chips have not been altered since the last testing by recording the checksum.
Yes.
Did it cross
You know, there is one thing lower than a belly.
your mind at that point that there was important data in those modules that was not seen or recovered or obtained by Ms. Gaffney?
Well, actually, two things.
No.
Well, three
Did
things.
you want to know when Mr. Burgess was looking for more data, more information, what he thought was missing?
He stated, I think, in his report or affidavit, I'm not sure what it was, but he stated what he thought was missing was there was a physical size difference. So he thought there was not corrupt data, but just missing chunks of data.
Why
Gunter, can I steal that? Half Truth Hank. I think that needs to be on a sticker. I think.
Online information, we've covered
Thank
that.
you. That was a good one.
Information
Yes,
and infotainment system. That's important information when you're reconstructing an accident, isn't it?
it could be.
Well, you read information in this case. Pretty important in this case, wouldn't you say?
Yes,
And so you would not want to engage in that process without this pretty important information, would you?
which process?
Of an accident reconstruction?
Sorry, so can you restate it, the whole question? Yeah,
You said you have some experience in accident reconstructions.
yes,
Don't you want all the data available? More data, the better?
generally, yes.
Thank you. You know what? That's brilliant. HTH. That is much more visible on a sticker than having 3 different words. Jules, can you message me HTH? I need to know what stickers I need to prepare for Monday, because Monday we start covering 2 trials. One at 8 a.m. And by the way, our coverage for this case will start at 8 a.m. starting on Monday. And then after they're done for the day, we go into Lori Daybell's trial, which begins Monday.
You wouldn't want to ignore data on purpose, would you?
No,
I mean, the data analyst, the more data, the more you get from work.
yes.
And so the power log on information that actually has date and time is critical in an accident reconstruction, isn't it?
In some accident reconstructions, in some, there's no debate about when a vehicle was on or off, but
Yes,
if there is,
ma'am.
then yes.
Not just on and off. The power
That's if it doesn't get moved, because they did request for the trial to be delayed based on the leak from the prosecution side to Dateline. Lori Daybell's, what? Good luck, Jimmy. Good luck.
power log on and off gives you the date and the time that you can match with text stream data, correct?
Yes, it
Because
does.
you know text stream data itself doesn't have date and time.
Oh, you want a quick recap? Okay, quick recap on this case. The day started out with the defense filing a motion to dismiss, and he ironed out a really good argument. However, Bev denied it. We started early today. And, oh, I have a file folder for that, Jess, above my videos. It'll be Vallow Daybell. You can get caught up there. I also have the last trial also on my YouTube under the Lori Daybell file.
It can, this vehicle didn't. It can, but this vehicle did not.
And this had a running time instead. Like
That's
a stopwatch.
Correct.
I agree,
So
Jimmy.
this data that was not found during the initial process, that was critical data at the time.
I don't think prior to the process, anyone knew that this particular Lexus infotainment system stored those key on and key off times.
She's not getting a retrial. She has a total of 3 trials. The first one was for Tammy, her 2 children. Just Tammy and her 2 children. The second one was for her ex-husband, or her former husband, who she conspired to unalive. This third trial is supposed to be her final trial, and that is for conspiring to unalive her niece's former husband. That's her last one.
The
So
only
far.
person that found this out was Shannon Burgess.
He found it in the process, but I don't think anybody knew in advance of this case. There was nothing out there about it. So to my knowledge, this is the first time that this specific data has ever been released into the wild.
But it was on the board there, if someone knew what to look for or got creative, they
Excuse
could maybe find it.
Yes, more so to your if got creative, because I don't think anyone would have been able to have the foreknowledge that there would have definitely been that.
Shannon Burgess did.
Sustained.
Oh, I have, Lisa.
I'll strike it.
And when Shannon Burgess went to obtain that data that everybody else overlooked or didn't know about, you went with him.
Yes,
So you had a process where he was going to now control the data and take the information that was left behind and remove it from the infotainment board, correct?
Not only that, but she's her own lawyer by choice. She's defending herself again.
he actually never specified anything about the SD card in that initial notice. So it was a departure from his protocol, and it was a little surprising to me when I got there that the protocol was written with a specific focus on a number of other chips. And it became very apparent to me very quickly that the focus was not on those chips, and the focus was on this SD card that had previously been unmentioned. There was nothing in there about that prior to that.
Did it offend you, or were you impressed that he had found that?
I was a little confused because I went into it with an expectation. Generally, if we write a protocol, we adhere to the protocol. If we're going to deviate, we have a discussion about deviations. So I was just surprised. It's not customary to sort of shift out of nowhere. But
In the middle
other
of a
than that, I did
trial.
not know what to think of it because I'd never heard of that.
Did you give any input? Did you have any knowledge about the SD card and how it worked?
No,
So when you watched Mr. Burgess remove the SD card, did you appreciate he'd have to engage in what you call reverse engineering?
he did.
Hold the hell on. You want somebody that took 17 years and still hasn't got their bachelor's degree, you want him to reverse engineer something and bring it to a court of law and us to consider that as fact? The hell?
Not elaborate to me exactly what his whole process
You
was
make this shit
at
up.
first. It sort of came out as time progressed through the first day in his office in Texas, and then I learned more as we moved to the second testing in Massachusetts. But he didn't explain it to me in one go.
Did you, at that point, understand or appreciate the relevance of the SD card relative to the infotainment system and what it could do as far as the amount of information that could then be available?
He never spoke throughout the 3 days at all about what kind of data he expected from the card or would be on the card or could be. He made no mention of the data.
Not what he said to you.
Yes.
Given your expertise.
Yes, Tam.
Did it ever dawn on you the significance or importance of this SD card that was sitting in plain sight? Objection.
Sustained, you can ask it to.
Did it ever dawn on you that Mr. Burgess
Dude cannot not passively aggressively ask questions. It's always that way.
was recovering this information left behind, that there was something important or significant
Correct.
about it?
At the time, I thought it was a possibility. If you reference the initial work, a number of different memory components were identified in this infotainment. There isn't a singular memory chip. So if we're looking for data, it could be in any of them. So we found a new source of data storage, and there could be something there. There could be nothing there.
You guys, we're only a few minutes behind. I'm just a few minutes behind the live right now. So we're on track. Patience with parameters is pretty much out the window today. Key points from the takeaway, or key takeaway points from the witnesses. First questioning by AJ. The vehicle never struck anyone. I think that says it all.
It was unknown to me.
But it turned out there was.
There was.
Now, when you were watching Mr. Burgess work as an expert, if you felt like there was something inappropriate or he had some great oversight, you could write a report about that, couldn't you?
I could.
Did you ever write any report in this case?
No.
So
Right,
you
Jimmy?
never wrote a report for your preparation of coming in and your data in the PowerPoint presentation, right?
Correct.
You never wrote a
You gotta remember, Hank, he doesn't have $400,000 to throw at witnesses. That's you, buddy, that's you.
report regarding any of your observations of Mr. Burgess.
Correct.
You said that he didn't say anything. He spoke to you quite a bit during the process, didn't he?
He did.
He showed you what he was doing.
He did.
He explained to you what he was doing.
He explained the process. I think you had asked me earlier about whether he explained the data, and he didn't.
It's funny you say that, Tam, because I think it was about a week and a half ago, we were sitting here and I'm like, you know what? They need to make this an SNL skit. I said the same thing. I did. I truly did.
He demonstrated great proficiency, wouldn't you say?
Right, Kelly?
He ended up with a successful acquisition of the card at the end of the process.
Yes, you Kathy's my witness.
When you are considering all your equations, did you consider
And Parker.
the timing information taken from the SD card that Mr. Burgess found regarding power on and power off of that car?
Yes, to the extent that he considered it in his own report. Again, I'm referencing his report.
But how about you? You're coming in here giving an opinion, saying what's better or best practice or right. How about you? Did you consider, you personally, the one who's giving the opinion, did you consider the significance of the power on, power off data as it relates to all these times?
Yes.
Yes, are you sure?
Yeah.
Okay.
I mean, I considered it. If that's the question is, did I consider it? I considered it.
Did you do any study yourself?
No.
Hank, how was he supposed to know the man that did the work did not have the degree he claimed to have? Thank
Now,
you.
we agree, or you agree, that there are variances between different devices.
Yes.
So a Lexus clock that comes from the infotainment system is very common that it would be different than a different device like an iPhone.
Specifically this Lexus, I don't know if we can make the statement that it's common or not, because again, this is the only time that I know of that this specific data has been analyzed. So I don't know the answer to that question.
Did you say on direct examination that variances between devices are common?
Variance between devices are common.
In a variance of 45 seconds, that wouldn't be remarkable on
No.
different devices. It's common in the industry.
Correct.
And in your business, that's an accepted amount.
I'm not sure what you mean by accepted. The amounts are what they are, and we have to correct for them. I've done analyses of clocks that are anywhere from completely correct, 1 second off. I've done analyses of clocks that are 25 years apart. So it's a wide range of
I
possibilities.
understand your point.
Yeah.
If you see as an analyst a 45-second variance or 30-second variance, that wouldn't shock you, would it?
No amount of variance would shock me, is the answer.
I want to ask you questions and go through your PowerPoint. And I want to ask you your specific opinions and how you arrived at certain claims that you've made,
Sure.
okay? If we could put up Mr. DeSorga's new PowerPoint, 52525. You've made a modification to your PowerPoint.
Yes.
You've made an amendment to your PowerPoint.
Yes.
So there is something that happened, you received new information or new data, and you updated or changed your PowerPoint.
I did.
And that's an
Very much.
appropriate thing to do when you receive new information, isn't it?
Yes.
If you have new data, you don't want to leave it behind. You want to make the best presentation with the best data you can.
I'd want my presentation of the data to be as accurate as possible, so I included all the data.
And you would expect that from any expert, wouldn't you? If they received new information or analyzed new data and it was important, it would be an appropriate best practice to update the PowerPoint or information they're providing, wouldn't it?
Objection.
I'm going to allow that.
I don't know if I would tell other experts what their best practices are. I would say, generally as experts, we do work that our clients ask us to do. So if we're asked to do it, we do it. If our clients say, hey, don't do that, then we don't do it.
Well, you like the phrase best practice on direct, so I'm just wondering if I can borrow that phrase.
Sustain.
Okay. We can turn to page 2. Now, this is taken from Dr. Welcher's report.
Yes.
Correct, Jimmy.
And again, you did no testing whatsoever. You just read
I did not.
reports. Did you read all of Dr. Welch's data, the gigabytes and gigabytes of data? Did you go through it all?
Not every slide, no.
Not just the PowerPoint. I mean the actual massive amount of data in his study. Did you go through the data?
Oh, no, I didn't look at any of the data.
Did you ever speak to Dr. Welcher?
No.
And so when you are making assumptions on what he thought or how he analyzed, you're just guessing.
He's going based off of what the guy put in his report. How is that guessing, sir?
I am looking at what Dr. Welcher put in his trial presentation.
Yes, Nancy.
And my assumption that's baked in there is that he's going to stand behind the things he says in a presentation. So I'm taking them at face value, but as being correct.
It's not a matter
I'm
of
not guessing.
It's not a matter if he's gonna stand behind it. You don't know why he put something in here. You just see it on the paper. You don't know what his thought process was, did you?
To an extent, yes, because I understand how the exemplar testing by Aperture laid the foundation to align the key-on events in the infotainment to the Lexus VCH events.
When Dr. Welcher made his PowerPoint, do you know whether or not he was relying on 154, on Mr. O'Keefe's phone, stamp 154, as the end of the event as opposed to the beginning of the three-point turn, 1162-1?
Oh,
Based on the math he uses, that's the implication. He puts a number on the screen that the only way you could reach that number is by making that assumption. So when I looked at the math,
I'll show you, Gunter.
yes, that assumption seems baked into the math he did.
So this seems like it's baked in
That's
that he
how.
was assuming 154 on John O'Keefe's phone was the end of the three-point turn.
Not on this slide, on a later slide, but yes.
Okay. And you said that variance is 30 seconds,
Hank filed a motion against the defense about it.
45 seconds. They're very common when you're comparing two different devices, right?
Yes.
Okay. Turn to the next page, please. You point out two times for the jury, the Lexus event 1162-2 ends 12:31:43, right?
Yes.
And that's based on the clock in the infotainment system.
That time is based on two things, the clock in the infotainment unit and the cumulative key-on timer in the text stream data. So it's a combination of two values.
Which is the running clock.
Correct.
Right. And that is compared or contrasted or coordinated with the log on off time that was found on the SD card. Yes?
Yes.
And without that SD card, we wouldn't have that time now, would we?
Correct.
Okay. 123209 isn't something you analyzed, but you just read in a report that that is information from Ian Whiffen suggesting or taking the position that was the last user interaction John O'Keefe had with his cell phone, 123209.
That's how I understand it. There was a phone lock at 12:32:09. I did not look into the underlying reports from where that came.
And you know those.
However, though, Kathy, it has come to light that in March, the federal authorities closed their case. Don't know if there's still another one going on. Just thought you guys might want to know that.
The two different devices, two different clocks that will have a variance.
Yes.
You mentioned trigger event,
Right?
and you
Yeah.
said that your preference is to, when you're doing times, to point it from the actual trigger event, and there was a little slap for emphasis to target you on that, right? The trigger event. That's not a standard practice or protocol that is supported by any type of literature, is it?
It's the methodology I teach, especially in the class I teach on the analysis of heavy vehicle data. We have the exact same problem with heavy vehicles. They all have clocks on them. And so in fact, I do a lot of clock adjustment on heavy vehicles relative to other sources.
Be right back.
And the way I teach it, I'm not the only instructor. Collectively, the way we all teach it is we generally start the analysis at the trigger, which is not to suggest you have to do that. It's not wrong to do it a different way, but that would be let's call it the default methodology.
The default methodology, do you have any professional literature that says that is the best time to start the analysis?
Not literature. I mean, that's sort of my opinion, because that introduces the least amount of variables. Once you start trying to align events off of subsequent times, you just introduce more addition and subtraction or math you have to do. So it's easiest to do T0 and align everything from there.
If you're lining up the end of one event with the end of another event, it's more coordinated than if you take it in different spots, isn't it?
That could be a scenario where then you wouldn't use it, right? Like I said, it's not the only way, but it's the default way.
I don't disrespect your method, but there are other ways to do it that are just as legitimate as the trigger time.
Absolutely, and that's why I didn't change the convention here. I used their convention,
So you're not
Aperture's.
suggesting that Mr. Burgess was being misleading by choosing the endpoint when he pronounced that's exactly the point he was considering, are you?
No,
And so the word cherry picking, you're not saying he was cherry picking, are you?
I don't remember the context in which I used the word cherry picking, but I don't think it was with respect to a trigger alignment.
So there's no legitimate professional basis of suggesting your way is better or worse than going from the front or the end of the event?
No,
You're not offering criticism on that, so just so I understand.
not criticism. I pointed out that it's not typical, and I pointed out not even to say specifically that it's not typical, because even that, to your point, might sound critical. I just want to be clear that I adopted their convention. It's not the way I would have done it, but I kept that convention consistent in my analysis. So I wasn't changing in the middle, trying to obfuscate what I'm saying.
I appreciate that. So if someone's looking end to end, you're not going to add 5 seconds. It's if someone went from middle to end.
Could you give me that?
Yeah, you were
A little
suggesting
different.
those questions about, well, since you're looking at the end instead of the middle, then you're going to add another 5 seconds on. That's not really an accurate analysis if you're looking at a comparison from end to end. You wouldn't then add the 5 seconds behind the trigger because it's starting at the end.
Objection, Your Honor.
I'm going to allow it if you can answer it in that form.
It's going to depend on if you're doing an alignment with something that is a range of values, then you have to be consistent on where you're doing it. If you're doing discrete points, then that's just a single point in time. There's no beginning or end. It's just a single second. So the best answer I can kind of give is it depends on what you're doing.
Well, in this case, you're basing it off the end of the event, the end, not the trigger, the end. Comparing it comparatively to the end of different devices. So you wouldn't just add 5 seconds just for that.
You would not add 5 seconds for the heck of it.
You see 12:32:09 minus 12:31:43, the middle line, equals 26 seconds. Isn't that in Dr. Welcher's slides before, let me phrase it more cleanly. Before Shannon Burgess analyzed the data more closely on May 8th, in his May 8th report, isn't this the exact difference in time that Dr. Welcher cites in his PowerPoint, 26 seconds?
I'll sustain it in that form.
Did you see, when you reviewed reports, that Dr. Welcher uses this exact number, plus 26 seconds in his report?
I got the number from the PowerPoint.
I'm sorry,
Not the
PowerPoint.
report, but that is, all of the numbers here on this slide are from Dr. Welcher's PowerPoint. And on the previous slide, I show that. So these are all just
And-
copied straight from that.
And you've labeled this John's interaction window.
I did.
Okay. Interaction window, do you think it might be confusing when you use interaction window to make it seem like the event was limited to 10 seconds?
No, and that's not the implication there at all.
That's not what you're trying to say.
That's not what I'm trying to say.
Fair enough.
If I can clarify what I mean by interaction window is that there's
Please do.
a range of times that we end up with when we start running these adjustments. So we never land on a singular point of alignment. We end up, like I showed at the end, with 30 points. That's the window that I'm talking about. That's the window that I mean.
So if we
Do you guys